On today's video, we are going to be learning FlutterFlow by building a complex app with FlutterFlow and Supabase. And so this is going to be a very comprehensive video where we are going to be building a production-ready consumer app using industry standard tools such as FlutterFlow and Supabase. So you're going to learn a ton of interesting things, a ton of advanced techniques such as push notifications, advanced Supabase views, and much more. And so regardless of where you are when it comes to experience with FlutterFlow and Supabase, rest assured you're gonna pick up something new, or even a lot of things new. And so definitely watch this video until the very end. Let me know if you have any questions or comments, and make sure to hit a like if you are enjoying these kinds of tutorials and you want to see more of them on this channel. All right, so we're going to be learning FlutterFlow by building a complex and a useful app. And the app that we're going to be building is going to be called Skill Swap. Okay, and the idea here is that you'll be able to swap skills with another person. So if you do something really well, you have skill A and somebody has skill B, and you're looking to get help with skill B, well, that other expert is going to help you out, and vice versa. Okay. And so the first thing that I want to talk about is the overall flow. Okay. That is kind of how I start, any kind of app building. I want to think about the flow. I want to think about from the user's perspective. You always want to be focusing on the user's perspective way before you even start building the app. So here we start with a welcome screen. And if the user is not authenticated, they're going to be shown the sign up login screen. And when they sign up, they will have an opportunity to set up their profile, okay, by, telling a little bit about themselves, listing their skills, maybe listing some of the skills that they may need help with, and stuff like that. Now, if they are already authenticated, right, so they're already logged in, we're going to be showing this dashboard screen, and this dashboard screen is going to be made up of all of these different components. So we're going to have things like the search discover screen. So this is kind of like the home page, right? This is where they can match with other users. They can schedule a session, and they can also chat with that user. Okay. And so, for instance, let's say I'm really good with NoCode development, and I'm looking to, learn how to cook, right? Well, I'm going to be on this screen. I'm going to search by skill. Basically, I'm just going to say, well, I'm looking, for help with cooking, and I'm going to see some matches, right? I'm going to take a look at them at each of these matches, right? See if they are a good fit for me. And then if so, I'm going to schedule a session. Okay. And that person needs to accept it if they're available, right? So, we're going to have a calendar, availability, all of that. And if everything goes according to plan, I'll be able to chat with that person. Okay. Now we'll also be able to favorite our, some of these people that we may have worked before, or we are looking to work, right? So let's say I search for somebody and I don't initiate a match with them. I may do that at a later date. So for now, I can just favorite them, or maybe even favorite people that I've had really good experience, in terms of collaboration, right? So if I'm a no-code developer and I'm learning, I want to learn how to, build a house or something, right? Well, this person is going to explain to me what I need to do, the different steps, etc. And I can save, this person in case I want to come back to them and have another session. Now, after a particular session, you'll be able to leave a review. Okay. So we're going to have a review system screen. And last but not least, we're going to have a settings screen. And this is going to be like a profile, essentially. It's kind of like this, where you can change your setting, maybe change your email, your name, some of the information, your profile picture, things like that. Now, this right here is kind of like the beginning of the flow. So this may be the final flow. This may not be the final flow. Maybe we'll add a couple of other features, add some functionality, and that seems fairly likely because I want to, add some more things to this app that we're going to be doing as we're building the app. Next, I want to show you a quick app flow. Okay, and this is useful to get inside the mind of the user and see how they would be hypothetically using this app. Okay, so the user logs in or signs up. They're going to do a profile setup. Okay. Then user is taken to the dashboard. User searches for desired skills in the search screen. Matches are displayed. User selects one. User initiates a chat or schedules a session. After the session, both users leave reviews. Okay, quick and simple. And I find this very, very helpful to better understand how the user is going to be using. And this is especially useful if you're a visual person like me. I'm a very visual person, and I kind of need to see what the user is going to be seeing. So definitely try to create an app flow for the apps that you're going to be building. Now, because the app that we're going to be building is going to be using a backend database, in this case, we're going to be using Supabase, I like to model and kind of architect the schema in the same step as we are architecting the app itself, okay? And a little bit later in this training session, you're gonna see exactly why that is so important, okay? And so along with the app views and the different pages and the flow, I also came up with the schema for this app, okay? And so here we have a special schema diagram, and the purpose of this diagram is to show you the different relationships between the different entities, okay? So as you can see, these boxes here are the different entities, and inside the boxes, we have the different fields, okay? And most importantly, we need to know the different relationships, okay? Because Supabase here is a relational database, okay? So what that means is that we are going to be creating independent entities, and that we're going to be linking them using a relationship. And the relationships are going to be a one of three. So it's either going to be a one-to-one relationship, a one-to-many relationship, or a many-to-many relationship, okay? And so in this case, we have a bunch of entities. So we have some 7 entities here, and there are some one-to-many relationships, one-to-one, as well as many-to-many, okay? Now, let me show you how all of this ties together so you have a better idea of how we're going to be storing our data. So first, we have the user information, okay? So we need to know who our users are, okay? So we need to know things like the name, email, password as well, if they're, we're going to be handling their logins, their bio, profile picture, things like that. Now, the next thing that we need to know is we need to know the skill. So a user can have multiple skills, and a skill can belong to multiple users. Now, pay attention to how I said. A user can have multiple skills, and a particular skill can belong to many users. Now, both of those statements are true, and because both of them are true, this becomes a many-to-many relationship, okay? So here we have another entity called skill, and all this entity is going to be doing is storing multiple skills. So if we have one skill, it's going to be one record here. If we have 2 skills, it's going to be 2 records here. Now, this table here does not link to a particular user because the job of that is this table here, okay? And so we have another table, and the purpose of this table is to connect these 2 entities, okay? And the reason we have kind of this 3-table setup is because we are modeling a many-to-many relationship, okay? And so what that means essentially is that we have multiple users, we have multiple skills, and then we have this linkage where one user can have multiple skills and one skill can be, had by many users, right? In other words, there is no uniqueness. Right? There's no unique situation. There's no unique users. There's no unique skill, right? They're all kind of mishmash. Now, the next aspect of this app that I want to discuss is the matching aspect. Okay. And so what this means is that when a user is using the app, they're trying to connect to somebody else who might be interested in kind of exchanging skills with them. And they do that by matching. And so here we have a table that will store the 2 users that matched. Okay, so very simple table. And This table here, this relationship is very similar to this kind of skills relationship because we are basically matching two users, right? And so this table links, a user to itself. It essentially links a user's table to itself. Okay. So in this case, this table links user to skill, but because matching involves matching a user to another user, this table just links user to user. Okay. The next aspect that I want to discuss is the favorites. Okay. So what favorites allows us to do is when we are browsing for different users, we can essentially favorite a user. Okay. And this is a very, very simple relationship. Essentially all we can do is, we can just favorite, and that's going to create a record here. Okay. So that's going to create a user ID is the person that is trying to favorite, and a favorite user ID. Next, we have the session entities. Okay. Now here, it's a slightly different relationship because a session is unique. So what I mean by unique is that if I have a session with another user, that session can only happen once. That next session is going to be different. The next session after that is going to be different, even if it's with the same user, right? You cannot have a duplicate session. Every session is going to be unique. And so when you hear the word unique, this automatically becomes a one-to-many relationship. Okay. And so here we have the match ID, which is this right here. We have when it's scheduled, we have the duration, and we have the status. And last but not least, after we've had a session, we can leave a review. Okay. And a review has a relationship to a session. In fact, it's a one-to-one relationship because you can only leave one review for a particular session, right? You can't leave multiple reviews, right? There's going to be just one review for a particular session. And that is why it's a one-to-one relationship. Okay. And so this is our database schema. And when you create it, you need to sit down and you need to kind of think things through. And it's a lot better to, think things through before you start building your app rather than, start building your app and then decide that you've made a couple of mistakes and you want to kind of redo things. And so when I look at this, I know that I've made kind of the right decisions and the app is moving in the right direction because all of this looks good. We have the right relationships. We have the right schema. Now, given everything that I've said, it's important to realize that this is evolving. So this may evolve in the course of building the app. So keep that in mind, but this is going to be a good start. Next, I want to go ahead and create my Supabase schema. So on the left-hand side, I have my Supabase loaded here. And on the right-hand side, I have the schema that I need to create. So I already have an account, so I can simply click on dashboard and be redirected to my account. And so if you don't have an account, you can simply go ahead and start your, open a free account, which is what I'm using. I'm not paying for Supabase. The free plan suffices for now. And once you do that, you can simply head on into your dashboard, and this is what you're going to see. And once you log in, you might not see all of these accounts like I'm seeing here. You might not have any projects there at all, but regardless, what you want to do is you want to click on new project. You want to select your organization and you just want to give your project a name. And in our case, this is going to be Skill Swap. So we're just going to call it Skill Swap here. The password, you can use any password you want, and do not worry if you forget it. You can always reset it later. We're just going to have this password automatically generated. You can select the location. So let's say we select East US, create a new project, and that's going to go ahead and create your Supabase project for you. And this doesn't just include the database, it includes pretty much everything. And that is why you got to give it a few moments for it to finish creating everything, right? Because there's lots of things that it needs to do. All right, so it looks like our project has been successfully created. Now what we want to do is we want to head to Table Editor and you want to start creating tables. Okay, so I went ahead and created a list of tables that we need to create, and as well as the fields. Now I'm going to go ahead and start with a user table. Now the important thing with the user table is that we already have a user table, right? It's built into Supabase. Okay, so if we head over here and you select auth, a schema is basically a kind of a bucket of different tables. We already have a users table. Now this table here is not a table that you can work with directly. This is a read-only table. And when you go into authentication and you add a user, which is what we're going to be doing in a little bit, or, you have a new user created as part of an app sign-up process, you're going to have a record automatically created in this table, right? So you're going to go over here and to users. You're going to have a new record created here. But the issue here is that this table that you see right here, this is what you get. So if you want to have more fields, like maybe name, right? There's no name here. You need to create another table and link it to this table, okay? And we're going to be using something called a one-to-one relationship. And if you're not familiar with relationships, check out my flagship training, Mastering Supabase. It's going to teach you everything that you need to know about relationships. But nevertheless, I'm going to be explaining a little bit along the way. And so the next thing that we want to do is we want to click on new table and we want to create this table. We're not going to call it users. I'm just going to call it user in. And the thing with this table is we want to link each record here to a record in the other table. Okay. And this is called a one-to-one relationship. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and add the fields, using these fields as a guide. So for instance, I'm going to say user ID. I'm going to click here and I'm going to reference the user ID in the other table. Okay. Because what we're doing here is we are creating an extension table of the original table. Okay, so we have this record, this relationship, and now we can add these fields here. Okay, so what do we need to add? We need to add name. We already have email in the other table. Password hash we already have in the other table. We want to add bio and profile picture URL. Profile picture URL. Okay. And now we need the type. So name is going to be text. This is going to be text. Profile picture is also going to be text. Okay, just to keep things very, very simple. And that's pretty much it. With each of the tables, we get these two fields automatically created. And these are good fields. You do not want to delete them. You do not want to change them. You just want to leave them as is, right? You don't want to touch them. Because essentially we're getting these two awesome fields for free. We don't have to create them. They're very, very helpful. Okay, so now we can hit save, and that's going to go ahead and create this table here, this user info table. The next thing that we want to do is we want to create the skills table. Okay, so we're going to do new, going to do skills, and this is a very simple table. The skill ID, we already have this ID over here. You can just leave it as ID. That's fine. Name is the one that we need to create. So we're going to do name. And we're going to say text, name of the skill. A very simple table, probably the simplest table that we're going to be creating today. Next, we want to create this user skill table. Okay. And now this table is a little bit more complex. And the reason for that is this is a many-to-many relationship, right? Why is it many-to-many? Well, because we're going to have many users that have many skills. Okay. So on one side, we have many users. And on the other side, we have many skills. That's a many-to-many relationship. We're also going to have something called a one-to-many relationship, but that's going to be different. And I'm going to be covering that as we get down here. But for now, this is essentially, this type of table is also called a linking table because it allows us to link a user to a particular skill, which is really awesome. Okay. And so here, what we need to do is we just need to follow the field. So we have this ID. We already have this ID right here. Next, we have the user and the skill. Okay, so, we're matching a user to a particular skill. So let's go ahead and get a user ID, and we want to link him to the other table, right? To the original table, right? We want to link him to this auth table. And so we have this user ID, and then we have the skill ID, and that's going to be the skill to the ID from this table. And I'm going to click here, and I'm going to select skills, and I want to select ID. And that creates a relationship. Next, we also have a couple of fields. We have the role. So whether this is going to be a teacher or a student, I'm just going to make it text just to keep things simple. Next, we have something called a foreign key and a unique. Now, this is only for reference. Supabase is going to automatically create these relationships, right? This is not something that you create here. Okay. So I'm going to delete this, and all we have is a user ID, a skill ID, and a role. That's it. Okay. So I'm going to hit save. And now we have a linking table allowing us to create records of a user having a particular skill. Okay. Let's continue. Next is we have the matching table. This is also a many-to-many relationship. Okay. You're going to see why. Just gonna call it match. And in fact, why don't we just call it matches? Okay. And here we have the match ID. And what we need is a user 1 and user 2. And that's it. Because we have match ID and we have created that. So all we need is 2 fields. So user 1, user ID or user 1 ID and user 2 ID. Okay. And we're going to link them to the original table. This, okay. This table ID and same thing here, right? We're going to link them to the original, the old school table, if you will, ID. Okay. And that's all we need to do. We have created that. We have match ID. These are all references. We are done. And so with this table, this is a many-to-many relationship. And the reason we only need this table, we don't need like a third table, like in this case, right? In this case, we have user skills and then user skill. Here, we don't need to because it links a user to itself, right? This table links a user to a skill, whereas this table links a user to itself. So let's continue. We want to create the session table. Now, this is going to be the first one-to-many relationship table. And in fact, I'm just going to do sessions. It's a good idea to kind of stick to either plurals or singular names. So in our case, we're just going with plurals, and that's typically how I do. Okay, just a quick note. Now, this is a one-to-many relationship, and the reason it's a one-to-many relationship is because a match can have multiple sessions, but each of those sessions is unique, right? When I match with a user, with another user, and we have the skill swap, we can have multiple sessions. We can have one session, we can have multiple sessions, but that session, each of those sessions cannot be it cannot pertain to another user because each of those sessions is absolutely unique. Okay. That's why it's a one-to-many relationship. So we need to have match ID. Next, we have scheduled. That's going to be in minutes, and status. And that's it. So match ID is linking to our matches. Scheduled is time, date time. Well, yeah, we can have date time, in fact, right here. And we're just going to have it without time zone just to keep things simple. Duration, this is minutes. So we're just going to have it as an integer. Next, we have the status. Now here we have it as an enum, which means that it can only be one of these. But just to keep things simple, I'm just going to make it text. Okay. Next, we have the review table. Okay. So the relationship here, it's a one-to-one between sessions and review because each session can only have one review, and it's a one-to-many between user and review, right? Because a user can potentially leave many reviews. Okay. So let's go ahead and do that. Reviews. What do we need? Review ID. This is this one. We need session ID. We need reviewer ID. This is the user. We need rating. We need a comment. And that's it. We have these last three. So session ID is going to link to the sessions table. Reviewer ID is going to be the user. So we're going to go over here. Auth. This is the main ID that we're using. The rating is just an integer and the comment is just text. And we're done. And the last table that we need to create is this favorite table. And this can be a many-to-many relationship because a user can have many favorite other users, right? And that favorite can be owned by many other users. Okay. In other words, I can favorite many other users, and those users can favorite other users as well. Right? It's not unique because it's a user-to-user relationship. Is just like this match table, right? In fact, we can think of favorites as like the precursor to match. So it's the same kind of table, the same idea. That's why it's many to many. Okay. Let's go ahead and create it. Favorites. And we're going to be doing user ID. We're going to be doing favorite user ID. We're going to be doing, that's it. That's pretty much it. So it's just two users, just like this table. User ID 1, user ID 2. That's it. So let's go ahead and link all of these to the same field here. This is called a foreign key. Okay. Because it's in another table. And let's click over here, users, and we select this. And that's pretty much it. Okay, let's go ahead and save that. And we are done. We still need to create more tables like for chatting and stuff like that, but we'll do that later. Now, the next thing that I like to do, and this is an optional step, is I'd like to create some sample data. I want to create some seed data. And that's because when we have this database here, it's completely empty, right? We just created the schema. We don't have any records. And so when we start building the app, we can't really display anything. It's just good practice. It's an optional step, but still good practice to create seed data, like sample data, that you can display in the app that you're going to be building. Okay, so we are going to start with a user. Okay, so we're going to go into authentication. We're going to add a couple of users. Here you want to select auto confirm user. Going to create a bunch of users. Now here, while you can choose any email that you want, it's important that you remember the password, because resetting the password is going to be very, very tricky if you do not have access to the email. So I'm just selecting any email. This is not my email. Okay, just a random email, and I'm going to, enter a password that I will remember. Okay, you can write it down if you want. You can also use one of these password savers, right? These tools that save passwords. But regardless, I'm just going to enter a password that I will remember. Okay, so we went ahead and created the first user. Let's go ahead and create another user. Here, I'm just going to create Tom. Let's say Tom, and I remember the password. Okay, so we have two users. Now we can go back here and we can create these corresponding user records. So remember, this users table is one-to-one here. It's a one-to-one relationship. So which means that for every user that we've created, there needs to be a corresponding record. Okay, so here I'm going to select the user, right? I'm going to click here. And what I want to do is I want to select the record. And let's say I want to select James first. Okay, and it appears here the key. So I'm going to select user info over here. I'm going to say insert. I'm going to insert a record. And I'm going to start, entering these, right? So here I can enter it manually, or I can click here and do select record and select a record that we have linked. So I'm going to do James at james.com. It automatically enters the key. Name, I'm just going to put James. Bio, I'm passionate about teaching others. Okay, so something like this. Profile picture URL, I'm just going to put something random. Okay, we're gonna add the picture later. So now we have a record. Let me go ahead and create another record for the other user. Click here, select record. This is gonna be Tom. Name is Tom. Bio is I love learning new stuff. Okay, picture URL, just a sample. Just a random URL. We're going to fix that. So now I have two records here. And so I want to do the same for all the other tables. So we're going to go down the list here, the same list, that we used when we were creating these tables. And so I'm going to go into skills table and I'm going to add just a couple of skills. So this is the simplest kind of table that we have. So let's say, okay, this is a skill. Let's go ahead and add another skill, and cooking. Now what we can do is we can link these skills to our users using this intermediate table called user skill. Okay, I'm going to click here. I'm going to do this. So let's say James, let's say we select James. This is James right here. James is good at learning foreign language. Okay, as an example. And the role here, so remember, we have these roles, teach and learn. So I'm going to put teach here, okay, because that's what I'm teaching. And then I'm going to do the same thing for Tom. And Tom is also teaching, how to cook Mexican food. So I'm going to put teach for it. So now we have skills that are linked using this many-to-many relationship that's facilitated by this table here. And let's continue on. So let's go into match. Let's say we match with somebody. Okay, let's click on matches and let's add a couple of records here. And so let's say I matched with, James. James is the second one matched with Tom. Okay, so now we have one record, we have a match. Okay, and next we have a session. So let's say they matched and they want to create a session, a teaching session, where one person is going to be teaching another how to do it. We're going to go into sessions here and we are going to create a record. Okay, so this is our match ID where, where was the session created from? It needs to be a match. Duration. So let's say, this is in minutes. And so let's say, 60 minutes, so an hour. And the status is pending. Now we can create multiple sessions, right? It does not need to be one session. There could be multiple sessions. Okay. So let's go ahead and create another session. Okay. Same match. This time it was 30 minutes and this time it was complete. All right. And I can also change these, the time as well, right? So I can, change it around, maybe set it in the future. Okay. Something like this. 18. So now we have two sessions that were born out of that one match. And next we want to leave a review. Okay. So we're going to go into reviews, insert a row, and we're going to select the session. Maybe one of the sessions here. And who is leaving the review? Let's say I'm leaving the review. James. Okay, we had a review and I'm going to give it a rating. We have it set between 1 and 5. So that's what I'm going to do, like stars, and we can display it as stars. And the comment, awesome session. Thank you. Awesome session. Learned a lot. Okay, so I was very happy with it. Okay, so now we have a record. I left a review. Okay, as a requester, right? As a requester. Okay, and potentially we can have the other person leave a review as well. But right now we have a one-to-one relationship. Okay, so like meaning that there could be only one record for a specific session. That's the idea, because one person is going to leave a review. That's the person who requested. And then we have favorites. I'm going to go into favorites, and let's say I'm going to favorite Rob. Okay, who else am I going to favorite, right? We only have 2 users. I'm going to select a record. This one, and I'm going to favorite Rob. Tom. All right, so there we have it. So now we have some sample records in here, right? So meaning that we had the situation where things happened on the app. You know, the app is no longer like brand new. It's actually live. It's a living organism, right? Because when we create the schema, there's no data. Nobody has used the app, but now it's almost as though it's a living organism, right? The app was used by people. It provided value. You know, they did something, and now, you know, not only is it easier to kind of build out the app, but it's also, you know, it lets you see like firsthand, what's happening, right? What's happening. And you can see if you made a mistake, if you forgot a field, if you need to change your relationship, if you need to add another table. So that is why I really like this exercise. All right. So we have the schema. We also have some seed data. And we're almost ready to start building the app. There's one more thing that we need to do here in Supabase, and that is we need to add an RLS policy. Okay, and so what is an RLS policy? RLS stands for row level security, and that is a way to control who has access to what data in your Supabase database. And so if you hover over this button, you will see that it says RLS is enabled for this table, but no policies are set. Select queries may return 0 results. So we have it enabled, but because it works on kind of a permission basis, we must explicitly add a policy that would allow, you know, users, clients access to this data. If we don't do that, nobody will be able to get access to this data, and that is not what we want. And so what we want to do now is we want to add policies to all of these tables. Okay. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to say create policy, and you can create all kinds of interesting policies, and maybe down the road, later on, when we are almost finished building the app, or once we are finished building the app, we might tweak it. But initially, as you're just starting to build the app, I highly recommend that you just select all and just call it all. Okay. And here you can do true, which means that this policy is going to be available to everyone, and they can do everything, right? They'll be able to do selects, inserts, updates, deletes, you know, initially, right? As we're building the app, as we're testing it, as we are, you know, trying to fix the bugs and things like that. You want to leave this, you know, kind of tweaking, setting up specific policies for, you know, for last, right? You want to save the best for last. So I'm going to save this policy right here. And now, as you can see, here in this tab over here, if you click on authentication policies, we have all our tables, but the first table is the only one that has a policy as all apply to all. So now we'll be able to access the table, delete, do whatever we want, which is perfect for testing. And so I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for all of these tables. Create the policy, all. I'm going to give it all, and I'm going to do true. Same thing here. And these last tables. All right. And this last table. Okay. So now all our tables have at least one policy, and this is that permissive policy where all. Okay. And so now we are done with the Supabase side of our app, at least for now, and we are ready to start building the actual FlutterFlow app. All right, so now it's time to start building the actual app. So here I am in FlutterFlow. We have my Supabase instance on the right-hand side. And as you can see, I have a bunch of apps over here. So depending on your experience, how long you've been using FlutterFlow, I really like FlutterFlow. As you can see, I have tons and tons of different apps. There's all kinds of different things. I really like this tool. You may have, you know, many apps, you may have few apps, or maybe you're just starting out and you don't have any apps yet. In any case, what you want to do is you want to click on create new, and you want to give your app a project name. So we're going to say skill swap, and here you have an option of choosing one of the provided templates if you're building an app that's going to be similar to what we have here. In our case, I'm just going to use create blank because we're building a specialized app. Next thing you want to do is you have a couple of options here. I like to disable this because I'm using Supabase, start building, and that's it. And now we've created a basic skeleton app that we need to build on top of. Once you have your app configured, the very first thing that you want to do is you want to connect it to your Supabase instance, okay? And so in FlutterFlow, if you press Command K or Control K, you're going to be shown this menu here, this command palette. And you want to type Supabase, and you want to select this option over here. Here you want to enable Supabase, and now you need to enter a couple of things, this API URL and a non-key. So back in Supabase, with your project selected, right? This is per project. You want to click here, project settings. Let me go ahead and expand it just a bit. And what you want to do is you want to click on data API, and you're going to be on the page that has a bunch of things. So here you want to copy this URL, and you want to copy this non-key. Click get schema, and you're going to pull all your schema. So this is going to be all your tables as well as views if you have any. In our case, we don't have any views just yet, and we're seeing all these tables. Now, the next thing you want to do is you want to set up Supabase authentication. You can simply pull up that palette here, type auth, select this option over here, and you want to enable authentication. Here you want to select Supabase. And now you need to configure your entry page as well as your logged in page. So for the entry page, this is going to be a login page. So we don't have a login page just yet. We're going to create it in just a minute. But for the logged in page, this is going to be the home page, or where, whichever page you want the users to see first after they log in. In our case, this is going to be the home page. We still need to configure something here, and that is why we're seeing this error. Okay. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to create a page that's going to serve as the login page. Okay. So here you can just select auth, and you have lots of templates. So this is a great situation where you don't need to create it from scratch. You have these amazing templates that you can just get started with. Okay. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to use, let's say, this template. Doesn't really matter. It's up to you. Can do my theme. I'm just going to call it login. And you're probably going to get a bunch of errors here, right? Depending on which page you select. And that is because you need to configure a bunch of things. So the easiest way to get started is by deleting all of this like third-party stuff. Okay, so this page actually has two tabs, right? We have the sign in and the sign up. Okay. And so if you click here, you're going to be seeing that. So what you want to do is you want to delete this over here, and you want to do sign up, and you want to delete that over there. And now you should have almost no errors. Okay. In fact, I have one error, and that is because I still haven't specified it as my entry page, which is what I'm going to do now. Specify as login. This refreshes, and I should have no errors right now. Okay. So everything is good. And now we have login and we have homepage. I typically like to rename homepage to home so that it's kind of consistent. And now when we run our app, we should be able to log in and get redirected to the main page. So let me go ahead and run our app right now. We're going to click that. That's going to compile our app and run it in a test environment right on FlutterFlow. All right. So here's our app running for the very, very first time. So we're going to sign in using one of the accounts, right? So if we go into authentication, we can sign on using one of the accounts because we have this app configured to work with Supabase when it comes to logging in users. Okay, so we're going to do a sign in, and I'm going to do james.com, and we're going to enter that. The password, remember, you want to remember the password because it's going to be tricky to reset it, because if you don't have access to this email, which is the case with us, it's going to be fairly tricky to reset it. So make sure you remember it. Gonna hit sign in, and we have successfully signed in. Okay. This is our homepage. There's obviously nothing there. We need to rename it. We need to change it, but at least we have successfully signed in. And also, if you take a look here on the left-hand side, you have this debug panel, and you're going to be seeing various like variables that can tell you a little bit about what's happening in your app. So We have this authenticated user, we have this email, current user ID, no display name, no photo, no phone number, but we have this token. That's also very, very useful. And it also tells us that the current user email is verified. Now, if you're enjoying this complex app building tutorial, then you're absolutely gonna love my flagship training, Mastering FlutterFlow, as well as Mastering Supabase. Mastering FlutterFlow is the best FlutterFlow training out there. It walks you step by step, video module by video module, and make sure that you only master the topics that you need to know in order to build amazing apps and nothing more. There's no fluff, there's no wasting time, none of that. Just the knowledge that you need to master FlutterFlow. There are tons and tons of modules, plus there's also app building tutorials where you can see how to build simple apps as well as complex apps. And pretty much everyone that has taken the training absolutely loves it and has only good things to say about it. Now, when it comes to building a backend for your app, I 100% recommend Supabase, which is my favorite no-code backend because it's super powerful and also extremely easy to use. And the best way to get a handle on Supabase and to build amazing apps with it and to really master it is by checking out my other flagship training, which is called Mastering Supabase. Mastering Supabase not only covers the database aspects of building apps with Supabase, but it also covers many other aspects, such as authentication, cloud functions, building complex SQL statements, and many other things. And so if you're serious about building production-ready, powerful, easy to use apps, regardless of whether they are targeted to consumers or businesses, and regardless whether you have lots and lots of experience under your belt or you're just starting out, then you definitely need a solid backend. And that is why you definitely need to check out Mastering Supabase to learn how to do exactly that. And also, when you join any of my trainings, you're also going to get access to our private Discord community, where myself and other community members are always present and are always ready to help you out, regardless what kind of issue you are having. And so we'll always have your back when it comes to building amazing, powerful, and easy to use apps. And you can learn about Mastering FlutterFlow and Mastering Supabase using the links in the description below the video. All right, so the next thing that I want to work on is the homepage, okay? And what is going to be displayed on the homepage? Well, the homepage is going to display the offers. Basically, so if I log in and I'm looking to do a skill swap and I am, proficient in skills A and B, and I want to learn skills C and D, then I want to see those skills. I want to see a match. And hopefully, this person is offering a skill that I want to learn, but they're also learning a skill that I want to teach. Okay. And so that's what we need to display. We need to display possible offers, possible matches. Okay. And when we are displaying multiple items in our on our page anywhere, we are going to be using something called a list view. Now, a list view is unlike a regular view in the sense that it can display multiple items. Okay. And there's a bunch of list views, right? So if I come over here, I can type list view. We have a list style. We have a bunch of these other ones. But if you take a look here, you're going to see a list view here. We have something called a grid view as well. And we have something called the wrap, a staggered view. There's a bunch of different list view. A swipeable stack is another example of a list view. And so for this example, we're probably going to go with a list view, which is the simplest list view that displays a list, or something like a grid view. And actually, come to think of it, I think a grid view would be a better approach here. Okay, so I'm going to select a grid view. And when you select a grid view, you can configure it, right? So as you can see, there are 3 elements here, right, that go this way. And then obviously, you can have as many elements as you have going down, but you can configure this, right? So I have it set to 3. I can change it to 2. I can change it to 1, but that just becomes a regular list view. And so there's lots of things that you can do. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 3. I think 3 is nice. Another thing that we can do is 4, but I think 4 might be too much. I think 3 going horizontally is a nice approach. Now, we're not done yet. We also need to display the items, right? And so inside this grid view, we need to place another widget, okay? And what I typically like to do, instead of just placing a text or a row or a column or something like that, I like to have a card, right? Because card is like, it's a widget that makes your UI look better, okay? So you can change the background color, you can change elevation, you can change the radius, right? Make it less, make it more. I think 8 was a nice balance, right? And this is kind of what you have. And then inside the card, you can start kind of displaying the elements. Now, most importantly, what do we want to display here and how do we want to display? Well, the things that I want to display might be the avatar of the user, maybe the user's name, maybe their bio, maybe, you know, their reviews, things like that, right? You need to ask yourself, what do you want to see? And it's important that you guys understand this concept, right? I call it like declarative, right? It's declarative app building, right? Because I'm not thinking, at least not yet, how I'm going to get that data. I'm asking myself, what is the data that I want to get? What do I want to see? What do I want to display to the user? And that's a really nice approach to kind of building apps. And so let's go ahead and start simple. Let's display a bunch of things, but we want to display them from top to bottom. And if you want to display things from top to bottom, you want to be using a column, okay? Because that will automatically display all its children from top to bottom. And now we can insert the widgets or, you know, representing the items that we want to display. So I said I want to display a profile, so I'm going to insert an image, okay? Now by default, its width is 200 and height is 200 for this image. That is too big, right? We want to make it smaller. So what I like to do is something like 40 times 40, okay? That's a good kind of balance. But we're not done yet. We want to display a bunch of text stuff. So I'm going to add a bunch of text. I'm going to add more text and I'm going to add more text. And so that we have 3 text elements. That is enough to kind of display the data that we want to display. Now this column here, we can align it, arrange these elements in some interesting ways, right? You can have them all kind of bunched up to the top here, or you can do it kind of spread out, something like this, something like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be spreading them out. Now, this is going to be the name, the person's name. This is going to be maybe, I don't know, their bio. And here we can have maybe reviews and things like that, right? So we can display their aggregate, maybe an average of their reviews. Now let's go ahead and run this app so that you can see what we have so far. All right, so here's our app. I'm gonna go ahead and log in right here. And when we log in, this is what we see. Now we're not seeing the elements, we're not seeing the offers, we're not seeing the users. We're seeing exactly what we have here. And that is because we haven't loaded up this grid view with data, right? This grid view is, you know, it wants to display a grid of something, but because we haven't loaded we haven't fed the data to it, right? It's just displaying one item, and that's not what we want to have. And so if you select this grid view, you can load it with data. And there are 2 ways primarily that you can load list views with data. So the first way is by doing a backend query, okay? A backend query gets external data. So if you click here, you have these options. This is data that's outside the app. Another thing that you can do is you can click here, and this is generate dynamic children. And that's kind of a complicated phrase there. But in a nutshell, it's a way of working with internal data. So data that the app knows about. So this could be like app state, parameters, you know, page state, function return, stuff like that, all kinds of things, but not externally, right? Whereas this one is externally. And so in this example, we're going to be loading external data. Okay. So if we click here, we're going to be using Supabase query, but the problem right now is that we're not quite sure from which tables to get this data to populate here, okay? Because we have our tables, right? We have favorites, matches, reviews, sessions, skills, user, etc., etc. But something should tell you that none of these is the right choice. And that is true, right? None of those tables are the right choice. And the reason for that is one of the most important concepts when it comes to relational databases, Supabase being an example of that, is something called relationships, right? So the fact is we have a bunch of tables, but all of these tables are isolated, right? They're isolated, but they're linked together via relationship. And so if you want to get data that's in more than one of these tables, you need to do something special. You have two options. You can do something called a join, which is a SQL join. And that is something that you can do if you're building an app from scratch, if you're not using FlutterFlow. But with FlutterFlow, you can't really do any joins. You can't really do any fancy database stuff. You just need a table. And so the other option that we have at our disposal is we can essentially create something called a view. And the view is nothing more, nothing less than kind of a pre-computed join, right? It's basically we're telling Supabase, hey, we need data from this table to this table and this table and this table and this table needs to be linked using this key there. But we want you to save the results because we're going to be coming back to it. And when you are thinking along those lines, what you want to create is a view. And, you know, views can be extremely powerful. And more than that, when you create the view, you can essentially treat it like a table inside of FlutterFlow, right? You can't write to views. You can't modify views. You have to modify the original tables that the views are pulling the data from. But you can, you know, get the data that you want, which is extremely powerful. Now, one way that you can create this view is by clicking to this and coming to the SQL editor and creating a view from scratch using SQL commands. But that's requires, you know, a certain level of proficiency when it comes to relational database. Another thing that you can do is you can click this icon here, and that's going to open up this amazing assistant, which is an AI, which is Supabase's AI assistant. And that can create views for you. So you can say something like, create a view called, you know, user list of user homepage called homepage view that displays a list of users and the number of reviews each one left and the number of reviews received by each one. Okay. And so I'm saying I want the list of users, but I also want a number of reviews that were left for each of those users. You can't do this from a table because that's a relation. And so if we execute that, it's going to be thinking for a little bit, and then eventually it's going to come with a SQL that represents a view. And that is because it knows all our tables. And so it's smart enough to create this view. And as you can see, you have something called a join. Okay. You don't need to know what that is, but it's something that I referred to a little bit earlier, right? Like it's a pre-computed join, and all you can do is simply run here and execute, and you're going to have a view created. Now, in our example, our view is a little bit more complex because we're getting the name, we're getting the bio, we're getting the image, we're getting also reviews. We have a bunch of things. And so I went ahead and created this view beforehand. Okay. And so this is the view that I have created using Supabase AI. And what's nice about this view is that it's kind of like a recommendation, right? It creates a homepage that's generated via a recommendation engine because it looks, okay, I want to learn these skills, but I want to teach those skills. Well, there's another person that is the opposite. And so it's trying to match up. Okay, so this is the view that I have created. It's called homepage view. And all we need to do is execute it. And once we execute it, Supabase tells us success, no rows returned. And so now, if you go to your table editor, you're going to be seeing this view right here. Okay, and one thing I recommend is clicking here and sorting it by entity type. And that way you can see your tables up above and your views down below. Okay. And when you select this view, you're going to be seeing data, right, that the view has calculated. And so in this example, we have a bunch of recommendations. Now, you might notice that we have something called a browsing user ID and a matched user ID. This browsing user ID is the user ID that's browsing. That is the logged in user. And so what's nice about this view is that we can select the recommendations for the browsing user, for the logged in user, by simply looking at these records. And in this case right now, it's all of them, right? So this record here, that's going to be the logged in user most likely. Okay. And so if I log in and I'm this user, I'm going to be seeing these two records. Okay. Let me show you how to implement that. Now, when you create a new view, or if you create a new table, or you modify some part of your schema, what you want to do, and it's very, very important, you want to press Command K or Control K. You want to open up this command palette, and you want to type Supabase, and you want to click on Get Schema. Okay. When you press on Get Schema, it's going to refresh the schema, and now we're seeing this view over here. Okay. We're seeing this view here that we didn't have before because we had to refresh the schema. So very, very important. Supabase, FlutterFlow will not refresh it automatically. So you have to do that manually. And so now we have a view that gets data from a bunch of different tables, and it gets the data that we need because we have name, we have the bio. And remember, these are the people that we are looking to connect with, right? Because they have a skill that we are interested in learning. They're proficient in the skill that we're interested in learning. Okay. And so now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click on grid view. I'm going to add this query. I'm going to say Supabase query. I'm going to click here and I'm going to select my view. Okay. Now, very important. I need to make sure that I'm filtering things, right? Because we don't want to display all the records. These are just all the recommendations for everybody. We want to display recommendations for the logged in user. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to say that browsing user ID is equal to authenticated user ID, which means that it's only going to select the records where there are recommendations for a specific person. And we only care about the logged in user right now. I'm going to say confirm. It tells us that we're creating a backend query and it's going to generate these items dynamically. And that's exactly what we want. And now we're seeing something else. We're seeing this first element that's kind of displayed correctly. And then we're seeing three other elements that are kind of grayed out, right? They're kind of faint. Okay. And this means that now we have a view, a list view or a grid view or, whatever view you have that's fed with data, that's loaded with data. Okay. And so now we can come over here and we can reload our app, and that's going to rebuild our app, and we should see recommendations for the logged in user. Okay. And so now we have two of these recommendations. These are dynamic recommendations, but we are not displaying the values. That's okay. That's going to be easy to fix. The most important thing is that we have two recommendations, and here you can see what those recommendations are. We are being recommended Michael and Tom. Okay, maybe Michael and Tom are experts in the skills that I want to learn. Okay, and so the next thing that we need to do is we need to make sure we're displaying the right data. So I'm going to start with image. I'm going to select this. I'm going to select the view, and I have this profile picture URL. And in fact, for this view over here, we're getting it from user info. I went ahead and I inserted profile pictures here. Okay, so it's not just random URLs. These are actually AI generated profile pictures there. Okay. Next, we're going to click on name. We're going to click here, get it dynamically, and we're going to select name here. And I'm going to put name for default value, bio. We're going to do that. We're going to select bio here, and I'm going to type bio. I'm going to select reviews. I'm going to select that. And we have something called an average rating, right? So we're getting a bunch of things, right? If you think about it, these are from one table, skill ID and skill name is from another table, and average rating is yet from another table. So we're getting at least three tables into this view, and it's great because we don't have to do this logic in the app, right? If we didn't have this view functionality, we'd have to do all of this logic inside. It would be just a pain. So I'm going to select this average rating. Now this is a number, so you want to format it at least Somehow I'm going to do number format. I'm just going to do no formatting, but at least as a number format. And I'm going to do that. And now let's go ahead and rebuild our app and let's see what we have so far. All right, so let me go ahead and log in. And now we're seeing actual data, right? We see the picture, we see the name, we see this. I mean, we have an overflow issue, and that is because we're trying to fit the bio in there and it's too long and it's not going to work. But here, there's no overflow issue, okay? And so this is something that we need to fix. But at least we are seeing the data from this view that's doing all the heavy lifting by, getting data from different tables, combining it together and stuff like that. So let me go ahead and fix a couple of things. Do we really need to show the bio? I don't think we need to show the bio. We can maybe show a skill instead. Maybe we want to show a skill name or skills. I'm just going to put skill there. Okay. And another thing that's extremely important is, if you have a text that has a lot of, a lot of stuff in it, you're going to have an overflow like we have here. And so what you want to do is you want to wrap them in a row. That's the first thing, right? You want to wrap this in a row, all your text, right? So that it flows horizontally. I'm going to wrap all of these, text items in a row. And then what you want to do is you want to select text. And because we wrapped it in a row, we can have this expansion. Okay. And this gives it all the space it needs, but it also constrains it. Okay. And so you want to do it for the other items as well. And you want to do that here as well. Okay. And so now let's go ahead and restart our app and see what happens. Now, when we run the app, this is what we're seeing. And it looks a lot better now. Okay. It's just we need to kind of format it. And one thing that we can do is change the size of the font here, make it a little bit smaller, give it a little bit of padding inside this card. And that is something that I want to do right now. So for instance, on this column level, we can do a padding. So maybe a 5, and that's going to make it a little bit nicer. And let's go ahead and decrease the text maybe from 14 to 12. Okay, let's go ahead and refresh our app and see how it looks. Okay, so that's starting to look a little bit better. We do need a little bit more kind of formatting, more stuff happening, but all that visual stuff we can do later. And so as you can see, cooking Mexican food, it's wrapping, right? It's not overflowing. That's because we've gave it a constraint. Okay. And another thing here is, we have the rating and reviews. This is the average of 5. And so if we go over here to reviews, we can see that we have one review, a rating 5, and this is probably, for Tom, right? Because Tom has it. We have the reviewer ID, which was, if I take a look, this is probably me, James, and session ID. If we open that up, match ID is 9. If we go here, and we can see that this is our match ID, and this is James and probably Tom. So we had like an imaginary session. I left a review of 5, and now the average is 5 for Tom. Okay, so this view here, this page works, right? Because it displays the information that we need. And another thing that's important to understand is that if we go into skills, we can see that we have 2 skills. But if we go into user skill, we can see that we have a bunch of users that are looking to teach and one user that's looking to learn. And so depending on what's happening here, that is exactly what it's displaying. And so from my understanding is, let me take a look. User ID, is that me, AE? Yeah, that's me. So AE, I'm looking to teach and learn a particular skill. So I want to learn cooking Mexican food. And these 2 are looking to teach cooking Mexican food, right? So if you click over here, there's 3 people looking to teach, but only 1 person looking to learn. And that happens to be me. And so it's a match, right? And that is why I'm being shown these, right? Because they are teaching the skills that I'm eager to learn. And so I can take a look at reviews and things like that. Now, another thing that we can do here real quick is that instead of displaying this text here, we can display something else. We have a really nice widget that allows us to display a rating stars. So we can select that, delete this over here. We can make it smaller, icon size 20 or even like 16, something like that. And we can pass a value to, right? As an initial rating, we can pass a value that will display it, right? So we're going to click over here, and we can pass this average rating, and that's going to display it there. Okay. And here we have a setting for interacting. Okay. And we're going to disable this because we're not looking to get users to kind of work with this, right? We're just looking to display it. And in terms of getting the users to rate something and all that stuff, that's going to be done in another part of the app. So let's go ahead and refresh this app and see how it looks right now. Now, when we run the app, we're seeing that this is 5 stars because it's a 5-star review. We are seeing 5 stars for this person, even though they have a 0 rating, right? They don't have any ratings at all. And so maybe it's a bug. Maybe it's an issue. We'll look at that a little bit later. Maybe we need to do something else. But right now, this is kind of starting to come together. It's a little bit better. It's a little bit cleaner. And we are going to be doing more kind of visual changes a little bit later in the tutorial. Now, the next thing that I want to work on is the next thing, as in what happens after I select a particular person to swap skills with. Okay, because the idea is, this is my recommendation. I click on the person and I want to see maybe a little bit details, or maybe read their bio. And then later on, if I decide that this is what I want to do, I need a button that I can click and say, hey, request or match or etc. And so in this case, what we want to do is we want to create another page. We're going to click here, and here we can create a page from scratch. But let's see if there's a page that's going to be useful for us. And for this, I want to select content because I'm going to be seeing lots of like interesting detail pages. And here you can see a support ticket, yoga class, project tracker, dashboard, etc., etc. And I'm looking for some detail page. So this is a detail page. This is a detail page, detail page. This could be a nice detail page. Maybe this is a nice detail page. All of these are nice. Another detail page, but this is for sports. And so let's see, let's keep scrolling. See, here's another detail page. Okay, let's take a look. And I'm just going to keep it simple. I think I'm just going to go with maybe just this detail page. We're going to change it. It's just, I like the font and stuff like that. So I'm going to say my theme. I'm going to say profile detail. I'm going to call it profile detail. I'm going to say create page. And now I'm on this page. And before I even do anything else, we need to think about how the data is going to get to this page. Okay? Because, well, the question is, what do we want to display? What data do we want to display? Well, here, if we click on the user, we want to display, lots of information, right? Things like their maybe their reviews, their bio, etc., all of these things. And for that, we need to create a view again, right? Because once again, we're displaying lots of different things, okay? And so we can kind of do the same thing, create the view, but I actually went ahead and created the views for us just to kind of save us time. And so I've created this view called profile detail view. Okay. And so I'm going to go ahead and execute it. Success, no rows returned. Now we're going to go here, profile detail view. And now we're seeing all the information, their teaching skills, average rating for specific profiles. Okay. And so now we can display it. But there's more. In addition to displaying this aggregate, this average rating, we also want to display the list, the actual detail, the detail reviews. And for that, we need another view. Because if we go into reviews here, we do not know who the user is. We know who the user who left the review, but we do not know who is the receiving user, right? Because that is linked via a session, that's linked via a match, etc., etc. So we have kind of an intricate relationship, thing going, and I created another view to display the list of reviews based on the person who received the review, not the person who left the review. Okay, so we're gonna execute this, and we have another view here. Okay, so if we come over here, let me go ahead and refresh it. Go ahead and refresh that, and here we have user reviews view. Okay. And in our case, we only have one review. This was left by James, but most importantly, who was it left for, right? Well, we have something called the reviewee ID, and this is Tom, but we have the ID, which means that this is being this target person, we can simply filter by this and not filtering by the reviewer ID, because that doesn't give us what we want. All right, so now that we have the views, we can query it to get the data that we want. The problem is right now, we do not know who is this person that we need to display it from. We did not pass the value here, okay? And so assuming that we're going to be passing a parameter to here, and you need some kind of parameter one way or another, you need to know who to display here. We're going to click here and we're going to add a parameter. I'm going to say profile ID, and this is going to be a string because it's going to look like this. Okay, I'm going to say confirm. Okay, so now we have a profile ID, and so now what we can do is we can go to home and we can create a navigational link to this other page, right? And you do that by selecting anywhere that you want to make clickable. So let's say this card, we're going to make the whole card clickable. Click here, add an action. We're going to do navigation, and we're going to navigate to profile detail, and we want to pass a parameter, profile ID, and we want to click here, and we want to select matched user ID because that is the users here. Remember, browsing is kind of the recommendation, recommending for who, but the actual user is going to be this matched user ID. Okay. Now, before we start working with this page, we need to load the data. So I'm going to select profile detail. You want to load it at the top level, and we're going to do a backend query, and we're going to do a Supabase query. And what we want to do is we want to load profile detail view, this one, but we want to do single row because we're just getting one item. Filter. We want to filter, right? What do we want to filter? Well, if you take a look at profile detail, we have this user ID. So what we want to do is we want to filter by user ID equal to that parameter that we passed from the other page. This is this profile ID. Okay, so now we have the data. We don't have the reviews just yet. We're going to do that later, but we have the basic data. And so now let's go ahead and populate it. And before we start populating, I just want to kind of fix it up a little bit. So this thing, we don't really need it. This is going to be the image. So I'm going to click here, view, and I'm going to select profile picture URL. This might be the name of the person. We're going to click here. We're going to come here. We're going to do name. Let's do a default. This here, it could be skills, list of skills. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to do teaching skills. This is going to be a list of skills. This is going to be bio, right? Kind of makes sense. And that's it. Like there's this card there. We don't really need it. I'm going to delete it. Attending. I'm going to delete that. And now it's going to display name, skills, and bio. And this is going to be match or request to match or whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to change it. I'm going to say request match, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to change the color. I think white is going to look better. Okay. And I'm going to make it a little, okay. So something like this. And so now, and this back button, it needs to, do back navigation. If we click here, we have it already provided by the template. All right, so now let's go ahead and rebuild our app and let's see if it works. All right, there's our app, and now you see it's clickable. So if I hover over the card, it becomes clickable. So I can click here, that redirects it, and now it displays that person's information. Okay, so this is the right stuff. So if you go into user info, Tom, I love learning new stuff. So this is correct. And this is the first skill. Tom is only proficient, as of now at least, in this only skill. And the other thing that I wanted to do was I wanted to display the actual review. So Tom has one review and we want to display it and we want to fill it in here. Okay, so how are we going to do it? Well, we have a container and we have, what we want to do is inside this column here, we're going to create a list view. And this time we're going to do just a generic list view. Okay. Inside the list view, I'm going to do cards and I may want to do a little bit of padding inside the card. So it's, the text is not on top of each other, right? And I want to do elevation. That's going to give it a nice 3D effect, maybe elevation 2, something like this. And inside this card, we can have a text. And inside this text, I also want to do padding, maybe something like this. I don't know. And then this text is going to display the reviews, but we don't have the data yet. And so I'm going to select this list review. I'm going to click here. I'm going to add a query, Supabase query. I'm going to click here and we're going to select user reviews view. This is going to be a list of rows. We're going to add a filter. The filter is going to be based on, not this, it's going to be based on reviewee ID. So the target user, who is the review for? not who is leaving the review, who is the review for. We're going to say equal to, and we're going to put profile ID. And that's it. Confirm, confirm. And now we're going to be seeing these reviews. Okay. Now, what kind of review data do we want to show? Well, click over here, go to this. We have lots of data, right? We have rating and comment. That's kind of what we want to do. So let's go ahead and do combine. And now I can do, or let's do rating first. I'm going to choose rating here. What I want to do is number format, no formatting. And then I'm going to enter space, and I'm going to do another one. And here I'm going to do comment, and you can just search for it, confirm. Okay, so that's going to be showing the reviews, and we only have one review right now. And so now let's go ahead and refresh our app and see how it looks. All right, here's our app. I click on Tom, and there we have, right? We have Tom's profile, and we have a list of reviews. And so you can think of this page as a collection of two views. We have this view, and we have this view. So it wouldn't have worked as one view, because we have a bunch of things here, and then we have a bunch of things here. And so we couldn't have really combined it, at least in any kind of logical, rational way. So it makes sense to have it as two. And what's nice about it is that this view that we've created here in Supabase, it's obviously for this. But these reviews, we can use them all over the place. We can use them on another page. It's very flexible. And so it was a good idea to create kind of two different views. And so here we have one review, 5, awesome, loved it. We can format it, we can change. Just going to leave it as is right now. It's good enough. Okay. It kind of displays what we want. Now, the next thing that I want to work on is what would happen after we click this, right? So first, let's talk about this flow. So when I click this, the user will get notified that there's a request to match, and they can either accept or decline or ignore or whatever. Now, if they accept, we are going to have a situation where we can schedule a session, and we can also possibly chat with them as well, right? If that's what we want to do, a session, maybe like an online session, like a Zoom session, or a chat. We can start chatting with them immediately. And so there's lots of interesting things happening. But before we get to all of that, let's first think about the initial step. So when we click on request to match, what we are doing is we are creating a record here. So if you recall, I already have a record here, and this is this initial record that is that we've just set up when we initially set up our database. But the idea here is that when I click on request to match, we are going to create a record here. And when the user gets a notification, right, using a notifications table that we still need to create, they'll be able to respond to it. And if they accept, this is going to be, the status of this is going to be, accepted or, successful or current, unlike a rejected. Okay. Initially, this is going to be pending, pending as to what the user is going to do on their end. Okay. And so let's go ahead and set this up right now. I'm going to select this button, and we're going to add an action. We're going to search for insert row, and we are going to do matches, right? We're inserting into matches. Let's go ahead and expand all the fields. These two are automatic. And so here we need to put, enter user 1 ID and user 2 ID. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put, for the first user, I'm just going to put myself, authenticated user, it doesn't really matter, user ID. And for the second user, it's going to be this user here. Okay. And we have the profile, and the status I'm going to set to pen. Okay. And so when we click on the button, it's going to create this record. And then on the other side, right, the user is going to do the same. And, depending on as to what's happening, they're going to take some kind of action. Okay. And so let's go ahead and run this app and see what happens. Let me go ahead and first check if this is the same record, because we're going to be creating a duplicate record. So that was James sending a request to Tom. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do it on another user, right? I'm going to send a request on another user. Okay, let's go ahead and start our app. All right, let's go ahead and log in. Okay, here we are. So let's say I want to, have a session with Michael. I want to do a skill swap with Mike. I'm going to click here, and I'm going to do a request to match. So I'm going to click here. And when I do that, I have another record here. Okay. I have another record, for a match. Okay. So this is me. And now instead of Tom, this is now, Michael here. Okay. So we have another record. Now Michael can potentially log in and do the same thing. He's going to see the same exact screen. He can do that, but that's not going to work well, right? Because we need extra logic, right? Because before any of us can click, we need to check if there's an opposing match that's pending, right? So we need to do a little bit of logic beforehand. And so what we typically would need to do is we would need to open this up, and instead of blindly inserting a row, we need to first check if the other user has requested for us to, to match up with us, right? So typically what you would need to do here is you'd need to add a conditional first up here, and this conditional, and above that conditional, you'll need to add another action. This action is going to be a query, right? You'll need to do a Supabase query, and then based on if you have results, you can either do true or false. That's how you would do it. But there's also a much simpler way of doing it, and that is by leveraging Supabase's something called triggers and Supabase functions. Let me show you how this works. So I'm going to go ahead and delete all this. We don't really need that. And so now we just have this action left. And so the way this is going to work is that we can tell Supabase to do something when something happens. And there are two components to this. The first is that when something happens, that's called a trigger. And a trigger can be triggered if if a new record is inserted, a new record is updated, record is deleted, right? Supabase can take an action, and that action could be anything. It could be, insert a new record, could be update something, etc., etc. And so what we can do here is we can delete this one, and we can create this trigger with this function that will let us check if there's an opposing request already pending, and if it is, then just set it to accepted. Otherwise, just insert it as you would normally do. Okay, so I'm just going to set this to pending. But there's one small issue, and that is in the checking logic. Okay, because we have here two user IDs, and so in the checking logic, we need to check whether this is first and this is second, or this is first and this is second. Because, here we decided to add my authenticated user first and the profile last. But if the other user logs in, they're going to add their authenticated user and my profile, right? It would be reversed. And so when we created this, the fact is I'm logged in, so my record is first. That is the convention that I have. And so if I leave this as is, it's gonna be different if another user is logs in. And so the way to solve it is to check both combinations. Okay? But there's also another way to solve it without checking both combinations. And that is to make sure that we sort these items, right? So, how we have it A to Z, and we also have digits. Well, typically digits will come first. We'll have 0 to 9 and then A to Z. And so the idea is to sort these UIDs in alphabetical order. And so in this case, we have AE0 and A1A. A and A are equal, but 1 will come before E. And so this one will be first. And when we sort them in alphabetical order, we do not need to check if it's this one and this one or this one and this one. We are going to always know if a record between two people exists without checking to make sure different combinations, because we can simply check for the specific sort order. And yes, we can do this in FlutterFlow, or we can do it using a trigger in Supabase. Okay, a trigger will be able to do all of that and more. And so I went ahead and created this trigger using Supabase AI. And now I'm going to go ahead and paste it in here. So I'm going to paste it right here. And there are two things that are happening here. And you don't really need to know all this because this was created with AI. But here we have a function. And this function here, this function is what's going to get executed after a trigger is executed, after a trigger triggers. And so first we're saying create a trigger on matches, so on insert, right? So before there's an insert, we create a trigger that's going to trigger, and we wanted to execute this function, which is this function right here. And what this function is doing is it takes the elements, right? It ensures consistent ordering of user IDs before inserting. It checks if a reciprocal match already exists. If a pending match exists, update it to accepted. And that's it, right? So now we're going to execute this. And if you go into Supabase and you go into triggers, you're going to see this trigger right here that we've just created. This is the name. This is the function. It's before insert because we need to maybe reorder the elements, right? If they're not in alphabetical order, it's on every row execution, and it's enabled. And here you can edit it. You can edit with assistant. You can delete it, right? You can create a new trigger. You can use this Supabase assistant, which is what I use to create this trigger. Okay. And so now what's cool is that when we run this app, and because we don't have this match with this new user, with Michael, it's going to check and it's not going to find anything because this is a completely different record. And so it's going to go ahead and enter a pending. Okay. But when Michael logs in, or when Tom logs in and they do request a match, it's going to update it to accept it automatically. So let's go ahead and test it out, right? Let's go ahead and make sure it works as expected. Gonna go ahead and rebuild this app. And so now when I click here, we should have a new record automatically created here. Okay. So if I refresh it, we have a new record here created. Now this record is pending, and that is because there is no other record, right? It doesn't matter who is logged in and, whether Michael is logged in and he is requesting a match on me, or whether I'm logged in and I'm requesting to match with Michael, right? It will always be in this order, right? So we're going to have 73AA first in this user 1 ID and AE0 second, because 7 is a digit and it comes before A. Okay. So it's always going to be in this order, and that makes it consistent. And so this way, we do not need to create multiple records in different combinations or do the logic in our app and the crazy logic. All of this can be done thanks to Supabase. Okay. And right now it's pending. Okay. But if we log in from the other side, so let's say Michael logs in and he requests to match, the system is going to see that there is a record already, right? And it's going to update it to accept it. And so let's go ahead and test it out. Let's go and see if this works as I'm explaining it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to log out and I'm going to log in as Mike. Okay, now I'm logged in as Michael, but the problem is Michael is not seeing the recommendations because there's nothing to recommend, to Michael. And so let me go ahead and tweak my database. So if we come to our homepage view, there's no recommendations for Michael. Okay. And so let me go ahead and tweak a couple of things here. Let's see, user skills. Let's go and see. So what does Michael want to do? First of all, who is Michael? Michael is, if we go into user info, Michael is 73. That's easy to remember. This is Michael. So he wants to teach. He doesn't want to learn anything. And so we're going to get Michael to learn something, right? We're going to configure Michael so that he also wants to learn something. So I'm going to copy this. And let's say Michael wants to learn 2 and 1. Let's do both. Okay. This is Michael, 2 and role learn. Okay. We're going to save this. And so now Michael wants to learn something as well. And let's go ahead and add another row. Michael wants to learn a lot of things. Okay. And so now let's go ahead and refresh our app. Hopefully we should see some recommendations for Michael. All right. And so now Michael is seeing everybody, right? He's seeing himself, which is a problem. We need to fix that. But he's seeing Tom and James here. Okay. Because he wants to learn all of these things. So we just basically said that Michael wants to learn cooking Mexican food and learning foreign languages. And that is why we're seeing themselves. We need to filter Michael out. In fact, that's actually fairly easy to do. We're going to be doing that in just a little bit. But right now, let's say I want to click on James. And now if I click on this button, it should automatically be updated to accept. And now as you can see, it is accepted. And that is because of this trigger that automatically determined that there is already an existing match, right? Because this already existed. So I went ahead and changed it to accept it. Now, understanding when the other user has accepted our request and setting this to accept it is great and all, but we need to do more, right? Namely, we need some kind of notification system to, let the user that, hey, this user has accepted, to let them know, because otherwise they have no way of knowing. Okay. And so the next thing I want to do is I want to create a notification table where we are going to be storing various data. Okay. And so I'm going to go ahead and create a new table here. notifications, and we are going to start with the sender ID. It's going to end up in a recipient ID. We also need to track the type of notification and the status, sent, read, etc., etc. Another thing that might be useful is to tie this notification to maybe a match or a session or a chat, etc., etc. So for now, I'm going to connect it to a match ID and perhaps a session ID. Okay. And so let's go ahead and give it some types. This is a foreign key to the original table. User's ID. Same thing here. This is going to be text. This is going to be text. Match ID is and this is going to be, all right. That is what we have. And yeah, it looks good. Okay. So now we have the sender, we have the recipient, we have the type, we have the status, and then we have, a link to a match as well as a session as well. All right. I'm going to go ahead and create this table. All right. So now we have this table notifications, and ideally these need to be created automatically. Right? I mean, we're not going to be creating notifications either manually or from the app. And so I will go ahead and modify that trigger that we created, right? When there is a match, to add a row to notifications. And then later on, we can display them here. But most importantly, we can also create push notifications to let the user know in real time that something has happened. And so here's my new function here. I'm going to go ahead and overwrite the existing one. And so now if we go to our tables here, and let's say we go into matches, and let's say I change this to pending. And now let's say we go into James here and we do a request to match. I'm going to click request to match. We refresh this. Now it's accepted, and hopefully we should have something created here as well. And we do have, okay? So now we have a bunch of records here. Okay. So now we have the sender ID here. That's the first sender, the initial sender, it has been accepted, and my request has been also accepted. So now we have these records created automatically to let us know that something has happened. Okay, so now we have these notifications. And so what I want to do now is I want to create a page that displays these notifications. Okay, so I'm going to create this simple page. And let's do a list. See what we have here. Let's see. So all of these are nice. Let's start off with this list. We can modify it how we want. So I'm going to go ahead and select this theme. I'm going to say notifications, and I'm going to say create. All right. So now let's go ahead and modify it. So we probably don't need this. This is a tab bar. Probably don't even need a tab bar. Let's go ahead and, okay, do this, and this row we don't need, tab bar we don't need. And so now we have just simple notifications. This is also, I guess, notifications. One thing I want to change is this app bar. I think it needs to be blue. You see how it's blue here? So we can simply click here, make this blue, make this white icon color, come back over here, make this blue, all of this white. Now, what we need to do is we need to delete all the other containers, because when we are creating a list, we don't need, 10 items. We just need one item that's going to be repeated over and over again. So I'm going to delete all of this. Okay. And what I want to do is I want to wrap this container in a list. Okay. And now we can just feed it with data, which is notifications. Okay. And so I'm going to go to Supabase. I'm going to get Schema. We have this new table created. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to feed my list with this data. Supabase query. And we can filter it, right, by the recipient ID. Recipient ID is us. That way we just see our own notification. And here we're going to display the notification itself. This is the accepted status. Type is accepted. Okay, so we're not really saving what happened, but yeah, I guess we need to save the message as well. So for now, let's just do type, okay? But we're not really saving the message. And here we can just display an icon. I'm just gonna do an icon, make it a little bit nicer, and let's say like this, And so that's gonna list our notifications here that we got using this notifications table. And a little bit later, I'm going to show you how to do push notifications as well. So I'm gonna delete this because I think it's redundant. And now we have a nice kind of list view. Now, speaking of list view and speaking of notifications, we need to get to notifications somehow, because from this page, you can't really get. And that means we need to create a nav bar. So you want to come to open your command palette, click here, you want to enable this nav bar, and now it's telling us nav bar requires at least 2 pages to have show a nav bar, and that's what we need to do next. So home needs a nav bar. So you want to select top level here, select this, and you want to toggle this, and now it's telling us we need another page, and this is going to be notifications here. And now for the navbar icons, you can modify them. Home is fine, but this other one, I want to change it. I want to change it to notification, or maybe like white. Not filled in, because this one is not filled in. So we have it like this. And label is notification. All right. So now we have notifications. Let's go ahead and check what we have. So we have a navigation to container. We're going to delete that. This should be navigate back. All right. So should be no issues. Let's go ahead and rebuild our app. All right. Here we are. Now, if I click on notifications, we should have notifications, and we are not showing anything. And the reason for that is because we didn't add an RLS policy. Okay, so we're gonna click here, create a all permissive RLS policy. All right, and now it should, okay, click here, and now it says accepted. Okay, we should modify our function here to add another field, right? So right now we just have type match. We can add another column here, right? We can go to notification. We can just say message. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and another column, or content. I'm going to say text. Okay, has been created. And now we can go back to this, and we can say, well, right here where it says accepted, we're going to add this content, and I'm going to say, okay, so something like this, paste that in there, make sure you put it within single quotes. And this is request, so we're gonna say content or user accepted, right? That's the name of the app. Okay, so something like this. Let's go ahead and re-execute it, so it overwrites it. It's gonna say user accepted, whatever skill swap. So let me just modify this manually so that we have it at least. Okay, and now if we refresh our app, we would see this. Come over here, and we're displaying type, so we need to display content. So let me refresh my schema, okay? And I'm gonna display, instead of type, I'm gonna display content. Let's go ahead and refresh this, okay? And there it is, user accepted skill swap. And we have that. And so later on, we can create a push notification as well. That's gonna be a little bit later in this tutorial. You'll see how to create push notifications. Now, once we have a successful match, we create a notification here. But we need to go further. And so another thing that I want to do is I want to create a session that is going to be pending, so that, you know, if the users want, they can schedule it and get a confirmation from the other user. And so I went ahead and I modified our trigger to also, in addition to creating this notification, to create a session in our session table automatically. And so here's the newly updated function and trigger. And so this function here, as you can see, it automatically creates a session for the match. Okay. Now, in this case, it's creating a session that should start in a day, and it says the duration for 60 minutes. And so we can modify that later. We can maybe clear this if we want to, but right now this is good enough. I'm going to go ahead and overwrite our existing function. And now we have a function that's going to be triggered, and that's going to create not only a notification, but also a session. And so let me go ahead and test this out. Let's go back to table editor. Let's go into matches, and let me go ahead and make this pending, and let me go ahead and run this app. All right, so here's our app. And let's say I want to connect with James, and I can do a request to match, and we already have this pending. And so I changed that from active to pending, and I'm also going to delete the notification here. Okay. In fact, I'm going to delete both of them so that we can see the whole flow there. Okay. So now I'm going to click on request to match, and let me go ahead and refresh this. And now it's accepted. If I go into notifications, let me go ahead and check that. Now we have 2 notifications. And if I go into sessions, go ahead and refresh that. We have another session that has been scheduled in 24 hours from now. Okay. So this works. And the next thing that we need to do is we need to show it here. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new page. In fact, I can just duplicate this one because it's very similar. It's a list view. I'm going to say sessions. We're going to enable navbar. It's already enabled. I'm going to change the icon. So I'm going to see if there's something like session, maybe class, I don't know, school. So maybe something like this. And I am going to put it in the middle because I like my notifications to be last. Control OK. And we're going to do navbar. And I'm going to just rearrange this. I want sessions to be in the middle because I want notifications to be last. Now we can simply display the sessions here, right? But we can't display the sessions because this is linked to match ID and we need to figure out who it belongs to the user, to which user it belongs to, right? So if you come over here, you see this match, we need to get who is the user that it belongs to right here. And so I'm going to go ahead and create the view here. I'm going to say create a view, sessions view, that will display all the info in the session table along with the users that are in the session. And I'm going to have the users in the session. I'm going to have them in a list. Okay. All right. Here's our sessions view has been created. Come back here, refresh this. And now we are seeing the sessions, but with these users and sessions. And the reason I did that is because it's going to be really easy to display the sessions by querying if the user ID is here or not. All right, so now that we have the view here, what's nice about this view is that instead of storing these as separate fields, we are storing them as an array in one field. And that's going to allow us to look up the elements easy. Okay, so let me show you what I mean. So first, let's go ahead and refresh our schema, get schema. We have the sessions view here. And now let's go ahead and jump into sessions and click on this list view. Come over here and let's go ahead and change it. This is going to be sessions view. And the filter, well, what we can do is we can say users in sessions and we can say list contains, and then we can say authenticated user. Okay. And so this way, it's going to pick up the sessions of where we are in the list, because we can be first, we can be second, it doesn't matter. And we can be in multiple sessions, we can be in none of the sessions, right? And so I'm going to say, okay. And here, I'm going to change this icon to something else. Let's say university or learning. What was that? School, I think it was. Yeah, school, something like this. And here we're going to display maybe scheduled at. Okay, I'm going to say display scheduled at. We can format it. Let's do this. And this is time. This is scheduled and the time as well. So I'm going to duplicate this and I'm going to say time. Okay. And this is going to be number, no formatting. And this is duration. So, okay. So just for testing and, yep. And we need to change this. All right, let's go ahead and rebuild our app. Here's our app, click to sessions, and now we see the session. We see the session because we are on the list. So if I click here, I guess we are this is, or this one, I forget who I'm logged in as. I think it's Tom or Michael. Maybe, I think it's Michael actually, and this is the Michael's user ID. So it's showing the session here. Okay. And, we can also, do something like, session with, somebody. All right. And that's also easy to do because, well, we have access to the match ID, right? So we can regenerate, this view to include the other person. Okay. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to regenerate this view to also include the other fields as well. Okay. So I have this new view over here. We're going to rename, replace, and we can't replace it because we're adding fields. So I'm just going to drop this view, session view, and I'm going to just recreate it. Okay. Now it's recreated. We're going to refresh the schema here. And now, we can, display who the user is, right? Because we have the user ID. So potentially, we can do a lookup on the user and get the user's ID, but that's still, it's not good for performance because we need to do this lookup on every field. And so what I recommend is to display the actual username. Okay. And for that, we can simply do that here. We can simply say, okay, here's my new view over here. I'm going to run this. There we go. Come back here and let's take a look. Okay. And so now that's what we see. We see the users in session. We have the user IDs and we have Michael and James. And it's in the same order as in this. And that means it's going to be very easy to look it up. So let me show you how to do it. Let's go ahead and refresh the schema. We know who is the user that's logged in. And so what we need to do is we need to get the other user, and then we need to look that user up here. So let me show you how this works. Okay. I'm going to add another field. Okay. This is going to say with somebody, right? In fact, I'm just going to duplicate it because that has the padding. And so here, what we're going to do is we're going to create a code expression. And the code expression is a little kind of mini program. It's a one-liner that you can use to do quick calculations. Okay. And so what we need to do is we need to pass the following data. We need users in session and we need users and session names. Okay. So I'm going to pass two string arrays, and the first one is going to be users in session, and the second one is going to be users and session names. And I'm also going to pass the authenticated user. That is who is logged in, so we can see who is the other user. And so now what we can do is first we need to determine the ID of the other user. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say this first one is these IDs over here. And so I'm just going to say var1, and I'm going to say the first record is equal to the authenticated user. And this is var3. If that's the case, then we're looking for the other one, right? We're looking for the other one. Otherwise, we're looking for the first one. And this is going to give us the ID. And using this ID, we can look up the name over here. Okay, so I'm going to say var2, give us the name of the user. Okay, and that should give us the user. Okay, so that's no errors. Let's go ahead and start a new session. And in our case, this should be James because we're Michael. This is us. And the other user is this one. And that means this is 0, this is 1. And if we look at 1 here, we get James. And that's the correct answer because we're logged in as Michael and we have a session with James. All right, so here's my app. I'm going to go into sessions, and what do I see? I see session with James. Because James is the other user. It's on the other side. It's the other half of this session. And because we have a list of IDs here, user IDs, and we have a list of names in the same order, we can figure out who the other user is by figuring out who we are. Okay? So here we have a session. We still need to kind of change it around a little bit. We need a calendar to kind of schedule it and see, if it's available in the other user. But we're slowly getting there. All right. Now, when we create a session, I'm filling it in. I'm saying, well, it's going to be a day from the current time. I'm putting in the minutes and all that. But wouldn't it be a lot better if we can select a time, a date from all the available dates? So basically, if we can click here, see which days are available, which days are not available, and then choose the available day, and click OK. Okay, we'll be able to see the other person's session. Okay, so here I have a session with James. I'm logged in as Michael. I'm going to click somewhere here, like, on the date or something. And it's going to show me a calendar with all the available dates, as well as the taken dates as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that right now. Now, if you take a look at our sessions table, we have all the information needed to store a particular session for a match. Okay, so we have scheduled at and we have the duration. And given the duration, we can figure out when the session ends and we can figure out the time slot. Okay, now the next thing I want to do is I want to create a way for us to query and see all the available or not available time slots for the user. So specifically, let's go ahead and query and get the not available time slots. Okay. And so I created a view to do this for us. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go ahead and paste it here. And so this view is going to show us the taken days, right? So user taken days view, and I can even rename it taken slots, time slots view. Okay, so something like this. And that's going to go ahead and execute a view, a query with a bunch of things, with a bunch of joins that will give me the taken dates. Okay, so let's go ahead and execute it. See if it works. Come back over here. We have this view here. And right now we can see that this user is busy on this date. And this user is busy on this date. And that is because they are part of the same session. So if I come over here, we have two sessions, but only one is scheduled. This one is pending, okay? It's looking at scheduled sessions. So if I schedule this one as well, then in fact, if I put it to scheduled, it's going to pull up the users in each match, right? Because a session has a link to a match, and a match is basically, two users. It's going to figure out who the users are and that they're busy on these dates. And so I'm going to go ahead and set it to now, let's say. And now we have two matches with dates. And so if I come over here, let's see what it shows. Okay. And so now we have three users. Okay. And that is because there's one user in both matches. Okay. There's one user in both matches, but generally we only have three users in the database. And so if I go back to sessions and I change this to, let's say, 22. Okay. And I go back here. This should refresh. I'm going to go ahead and refresh this. And now we have 22. Okay. So now we have this user. He's busy on the 22. And then this user is busy on the 19 and 22. Okay. Because before we had two sessions on the same date, just different time. But here we're tracking it by date. We're not tracking it by time, just to keep things simple. Okay. And so as you can see, this user is busy here. This user is busy here. And this user is busy on both days because this user, that's probably me. They have, let me take a look. Let me double check, but that should be me over there. What is it? AE0, I think. Yeah. James, right? So I'm a member on two sessions with two separate users. And so I can see what's happening. And so that way, if we are trying to create a session with James, schedule a session with James, we can simply query this view and see which days are busy and then display them as busy on the calendar and, mark them, as not selectable and all that, or just display them that, this is red, this is busy, so that the user can select the other dates and create and schedule a session. Now, when it comes to displaying a calendar view, FlutterFlow actually has a calendar, okay? It's actually more of a date picker. And so the way it works is that you select a widget and you add an action to it, right? So I can add an action and I can type date, and I'm going to find a date time picker, okay? And so this allows you to select a particular date. We cannot display certain dates as disabled or busy, if you're trying to display time slots. We can't really do that because there's no options. This is a very, very simple picker. And so in this situation, what we need to do is we need to find a third-party widget or code our own custom widget to do it. And if you head over to pop.dev, you're going to find a ton of widgets, right? So over here, you have lots and lots of awesome widgets. Some are better than others. Some are more popular than others. So you definitely have to check it out. But you're going to find widgets for just about anything, right? To implement pretty much any kind of functionality. And so while I was browsing, I found this widget here, calendar view. And this supposedly lets us do exactly what we want to do. Okay, so we can have it views like this, like a day view. We can have a view like a week view, something like this, etc., etc. So all kinds of interesting things. Now, it's a little tricky to implement, these third-party widgets, right? It takes a little bit more effort. But when you do implement them, you're gonna see the rewards. You'll be able to have really nice custom functionality and custom features. Okay. And so what I like to do here is I like to have this, I like to read the README tab, but I also like to click on example and take a look at it, at an example. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy this example by clicking here. I'm going to go back to my app and I'm going to click here to go into custom code. I'm going to click on add and I'm going to add a widget. Okay. Then I'm going to click here to give us this boilerplate. I'm going to copy to editor. And this boilerplate is essentially like it's a dummy widget. I mean, it just displays something called a container, which is something that you have in FlutterFlow. It's the same thing as in FlutterFlow, except here you're seeing the code. But what we want to do is we want to take this code here and we want to paste it inside our container. Instead of pasting everything, you want to find where it says kind of my app and you want to see where it says return. And that's what you want to do. You want to copy that and you want to come back and you want to replace this container. Now you're going to need to fix a couple of things. And then what you want to do is you want to keep going. You want to copy all of this because this has the events, right? And this shows us how we can display our own events, which is what the standard widget could not do. So we're going to go ahead and paste that at the end. And there's a couple of other things that we need to do. We need to click here and get this dependency, it's called. And you want to click here, add this dependency. And then you want to finally copy this here. Okay, you want to copy this calendar view package include. And you want to put it where it says do not remove or modify code above. Okay. Now you want to click on save widget. And at that point, you should not have any errors. I mean, you might be seeing some red here and there. That's okay. And now what you want to do is you want to click here to attempt to compile it. Okay, let's see if that works. Now it's compiling it. Sometimes it works on the first try. Sometimes it doesn't. Let's see what happens. Okay, so in our case, we have an error. So let's take a look. So it's telling us these pointers. And one of the errors that I was getting is this now. And that is because I forgot to copy this. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in there. And we need to put it after the import. So right here, let's go ahead and try to do that again. And obviously you can use AI, you can use ChatGPT to help you out. It's definitely going to help you out, but I'm trying to do it manually just to show you the process. And now we just have a couple of errors, right? So this has to do with pointer device kind. Let me go ahead and see what the issue is. Let's go ahead and import this one as well. That might fix it. Go ahead and hit save and try compiling again. And now we just have one error. This is homepage isn't defined. Line 46. And let's go ahead, find line. Okay, so this is this home page. Okay, so this right here, we actually don't need that because in our boilerplate, we don't have this home page. And so we actually do not need this home page. So let me go ahead. We can remove this home. And now it should hopefully work. All right. And now we don't have any errors, right? This is green. Everything is green. And the next thing that we need to do is we need to actually display this widget somewhere. Now for testing, we can probably display it here. So for instance, let's say, we click here and then we load something else and we display it. But right now for testing, I'm just going to display it, as part of the session. So what I need to do is I need to click here. Now I can click here and I can select it as a custom widget. Okay. Now I want to set the width and height. So I'm going to say the width as 350. And the height is 400. Okay, that looks about right. And now we're going to run our app and see if we have this displaying anything. Let's go ahead and log in. Here we are. These are our recommendations. I'm going to click here. And when I click here, I do not see anything. So there's some issue somewhere. And what we're going to do is we are going to ask ChatGPT to help us out. Okay. And so with ChatGPT open here, I'm going to go ahead and select all of it. And I'm going to see if we have any issues. This custom widget is showing as empty. And let's see if it's able to help. Okay. So it's telling me that we have these issues here and it's going to generate the fixed code. It also correctly understood and detected that we're using FlutterFlow. So it's going to fix a couple of things for us. And it's generating the fixed code right now. Okay. So it generated the code and it's telling us what was fixed. And it also tells us that, next steps, things that we can do. So I'm going to go ahead and copy it. I'm going to go ahead and paste it. You can also click here to kind of arrange it, but it looks good. I'm going to hit save and let's go ahead and recompile it. Click here. Hopefully there should be no issues. And we don't have any issues, which is perfect because it correctly generated this code. Okay, so now let's go ahead and see if it's going to actually display something. And what do we see? We actually see a display. And as you see it right now, that's how it's going to be displayed. Okay. And so let's go ahead and rebuild our app and inspect our new custom widget, this calendar widget. Okay. We click here and there it is. So it's a month view. Okay. It selects the current date and it tells us that this is the second month of this year. We can go and we have this. That's really nice. So you see how it blocks off certain days. It has this and you see how it displays them differently, okay? Which is awesome. And so now what we need to do is we need to customize or adapt this widget to to the data that we have here. Okay. So if you recall, we are going to be getting various days that this person is busy. Okay. So we're going to have a list of days and then we need to mark them on this map somehow. And so we can use ChatGPT to do it as well, but I want to show you the workflow. Okay. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to come back to your custom widget and you want to define a parameter that you're going to be passing to this widget. So in our case, these are going to be booked time or book slots. Okay. And this is going to be a date time. And this is going to be a list. Okay. So this is going to be the parameter that we're going to be passing. Now, if you click here, it's going to show you how it wants it to be. Okay. And so what this means is that we need to take this and we need to actually, and it also has it here, and we need to paste it, right? So where you see width and height, you can simply paste this and then you can say this, and it's even going to fill it out for you, right? Complete it for you. This book slots. Let me take a look. What do we have? Required. It needs to be required. Okay. Okay. Now everybody's happy. Now we have a parameter, which we're going to be passing once we get the data from the database. Now what we want to do is we want to take this code and we want to tell ChatGPT, given this widget and given this list of book slots, mark them on the calendar in a month view as disabled or something like that. Okay. So I'm going to say, given this custom widget, the included book slots, grayed out or something like this, grayed out or disabled days in a month calendar view. Okay, let's go ahead and see if it's able to figure it out. Okay, so it's telling us what it needs to do: convert book slots into calendar view data, customize month view appearance. Okay, so it understood. And it's generating this new code with these book slots, and we'll be able to test it out using some dummy data as well before including real data. Okay, so it's still generating. Okay, there it is. And it's telling us what's improved, all of this. And you can simply copy this, paste it in here, double check that you have your slots there. Okay, there is some issue there. As you can see, we're having our first issue, but let's go ahead and see if this works. We're going to save this and we are going to compile it and see if it's able to compile it. But sometimes you may have some red stuff, but it still compiles and runs perfectly fine. So let's see this first. But if we get errors here, then we need to come back and fix it. Okay, so we are getting an error. Okay, so it is a legit error. And let's see if we are able to. So it's telling us this is the error. And I'm going to paste it to ChatGPT and have it solve it for me. Okay, so we have this new code. Hopefully that fixes the issue. And it looks like we're still getting an error. We need to fix it. Go ahead and see if it's able to fix it. Okay, so I went ahead and switched the models to one of the thinking models and see if it's able to fix it. I actually had situations before where the default model wasn't able to fix it, while this model fixed it. Let's see if it's able to do it. Go ahead and copy it. Still an error. Okay, but this is a different error now. Go ahead and fix it. So after some back and forth, I was able to get it to generate a nice monthly view. And we can also submit our book slots. So let me set a couple of book slots, some sample ones, and we can do it using app state just for testing. So I'm going to come over here. I'm just going to say slots, date, time, list. Okay. And so let's create a couple of days. So let's say we have 219. I'm going to have 220 and maybe 221. Okay, so we have 4 days. Now I'm going to come here. I'm going to select it. I'm just going to type slots. We confirm, and it should display them when we run our app. I'm going to go ahead and rebuild our app. All right, click here. And as you can see now, they're kind of grayed out. So this could be somebody's schedule. We can see that they're grayed out. And we can see that, we can't select those days. Okay, so we can select another day. We can select, let's say, this one. and we'll be able to set that date, right? And so let's go ahead and implement this widget here. And so the idea is we are going to be we're going to be creating this automatically, right? And they'll be able to click on the scheduled and, select a date. And so the idea is they'll be able to click here. We're going to have a pop-up that's going to display the calendar view. And when they select it, that's what's going to be set. And so let's go, let me show you how this works. What we need to do in order to have a pop-up, we need to have a component. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to create a new component, and this is going to be just a blank component. And I'm going to say calendar view. And I'm going to click here, and I'm going to insert this calendar view, and I'm going to give it a, let's say 350 by 400, something like this. Okay. Something like this. In fact, that's probably, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. So something like this. We can also pad it a little bit from the top. So now it looks something like this. Okay. And we can pass it the book slots as a parameter to this component, right? Essentially, a component is a way to separate your app. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a component parameter, and I'm going to call it book slots. And this is going to be date, time. This is a list. It's required. I'm going to do that. And then inside of our component, I'm going to pass this parameter. Okay. So as long as we pass it, it's going to be displayed perfectly. And so now what we need to do is we need to go back to sessions, and we're going to delete it here, because that was just for testing. And let's say they click on this icon, right? Anywhere you want. Let's say they click on this icon here. And what we're going to do is we're going to create an action that will show a bottom sheet. Okay, show a bottom sheet, and the bottom sheet needs a component. So we're going to do a calendar view, and we need to pass the parameters, right? We need to pass our book slots. And that is where we need to first get them, right? We need to first get them in the view. And so on this level, right, we're getting this data. What we can do is we can get them from a view. But in order to do that, we need to create a view first. Thankfully, we already have this view created, as I did previously. And so what we need to do is we need to refresh our app schema so that we have this view. Okay, I'm going to refresh it here. And now we have this view over here. We just passed the user ID, and we're going to get all the days. And so now what I can do is on this level, we can do it on this level. We can also do it on this level if we want. Let's say I do it on this level. I can add a query that's going to query this view. So what we want to do is we want to query, this view over here, list, and we're going to filter by user ID that it's equal to this user that we're showing, the target user, right? User session view row. And we want to get this other user. Okay. And so there's going to be two users, and one of them is us, and the other one is the user, and we don't know who that is. So we need to use some code expression. We need to use a code expression that we have here. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to come back here. I'm going to do a Supabase query. We are going to do this last view, slots. I'm going to do a filter. User ID is equal to, and I'm going to paste this code expression. Okay. And this code expression, well, in our case, this gives us back a name, but we do not want a name. We want an ID. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change it, right? So I'm going to say this is users, and this is usernames, right? So var1 is a list of users. And so what we need to do is, we need to do var1, right? So let me double check, if it works. So var1, if the first one is us, give us back the other one. Otherwise, give us the first one. Yeah, that's fine. That should give us the user ID. So let's give it the return type. This is string. Okay, so it's string. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that we return the actual user ID. So this var1, 0 is var3. Let me check that. If the 0 is var3, then what we want to do is return var11. Otherwise, just return the first one. Because if the first element is us, then return the second element. Otherwise, return the first element because it's not us. Okay. We're trying to get the other person. Confirm. Now we have this filtering. Okay. So this is going to give us a list of dates. Okay. As we have here, this is our dates over here. And we can pass that list of dates to our, to this right here, to our, calendar view. Okay. And so now we have this book slots. We can simply come over here And this is the rows. And so here, what we need to do is we need to map list, and we just need to get taken date. That's it. That's it. So now we have a list of dates for that user. Okay. And we're passing it, and that's going to open it, and that's going to gray out those dates. All right. And here I want the background color to not be transparent. I want it to be white right here. And that's pretty much it. Let's go ahead and run it and see how it looks. All right, here we are. And if I click here, we can see that these are clickable. And so if I click this, it should pop up, and it's telling us that 19 is grayed out because that is when the session is set. Now, there's one last thing that we need to do to this widget that we have here is we need to create a callback that tells our app which date the user selected. Now, if you add a parameter, you can add something called an action here. Okay, and this is a callback. So I'm going to add this action so that we can see how it generates code for it. We're going to call it onDateSelect. And this action over here, we're going to add a parameter, and it needs to tell us the actual date. So we're going to search for date, and I'm going to say date select. I'm going to remove this nullable because it's not nullable. It's going to be, it's going to be something. And so now if I select it, we can see how it's generating it, right? So what we want to do is we want to copy this, and we need to remember how it's there. And I'm going to paste that there, and I'm going to say required this, and it's going to fill it in for me. Okay, perfect. Now, if I save that, it should be no issues right now. Okay, so this code should compile right now as is. It's just going to tell us that we're not passing this on date selected, and that is fine. But the code itself should compile. Okay, so the widget compiled perfectly, so you can ignore all this red stuff. That is not an issue. And so now, if we go back to our calendar view component here, we selected, we have something called a onDateSelected callback. So we can open it, we can select the callback, we can add an action. So for instance, show a snack bar for testing, and we can actually display the date selected. I'm going to hit confirm. And now when we click on a date, it should tell us what the date is because the widget knows about it. It calls the callback. So let's go ahead and test it out. And then we're going to bring it all together. And so now when we run our app and we click here, we see the date, but we can also click and we get an event. Okay. And I basically have this event where, you know, we set it up and we have this callback on date selected. So we can do anything that we want. We get the date back. I'm just showing an informational dialog. But we can also set some app state, set all kinds of interesting state. And so right now, what do we have? We have an app that allows us to pick a date, okay? Except this one, right? And so I can click here and it knows the date, right? It's just, we're not setting the time right now. We're just focusing on the date, and that is absolutely fine. Okay. And so what we want to do is we want to set the session on that date. Okay. And so if we click here on Michael has a session on the 19th with us, right? And if we go to our database over here and we take a look, we can see that in terms of sessions, well, if we go into matches first, we can see that Michael, which one is Michael? Maybe this one, this one is Michael, right? Michael has a session with us. If Michael has a session with somebody else, that session, that, you know, the fact that he's busy and that session is, you know, on the 24th or something, he would have 24th grayed out. And so right now, what we want to do is we want to be able to click on this and change the date. And so let's say, you know, I see that he's busy on the 19th, but he's free everywhere. So we can pick any other date. So if I select this, we are going to update the session to the date selected. And that's what we need to do. And that is easy to do because of this callback, right? So all we need to do is come over here and we can just search for update row, and we need to update sessions. And well, we need to match first. So we need to match by the ID, which means that we need to have this ID sent to us as well. Okay. Because right now we're being sent, just what are we being sent? We are being sent just the block slot, the book slots. We need to have the ID and a couple of other things, but we can simply come over here and we can do an update. So we're going to do this matching rows and set fields. All we need to do is set scheduled at, to the date, to this date. Okay. And so I'm going to go ahead and get an ID. So it sends an ID as well. And we're going to come over here and I'm going to go ahead and define another parameter. This is going to be session ID, which is an important parameter. It's an integer. It's required. Confirm. And now I'm going to pass it. And now I can go in here and I can just pass session ID. And then inside my calendar view, right, we're getting it here, but inside this event, when we click on something, we can match, we can do this match because we know the session ID, right? We can say, well, we want to filter where ID is equal to session ID. Okay, so it's going to modify that exact session to the date selected. Okay, so let's go ahead and restart it. What do we have here? What is going on? Yeah, that looks valid to me. ID equals to session ID. There's no issues here. Go ahead and refresh that. It looks like there's no issues. Okay, so let's go ahead and rebuild our app and let's see if it's modifying the session. Okay, I select here and let's say I click here and I know Michael is busy on the 19th. That's actually our session. So I'm going to click on 22 and hopefully it should change it. And as you can see, it has changed it, right? It's 00. In fact, we're not tracking time here per se, right? In fact, I can just make it default 9 a.m. or something like that. And in fact, the best way to do it would be by looking at the dates over here, right? So this is what's being passed, right? This current date. And we can have it because this is date time. We can attach a time to it as well. Okay, so if we hover over, we can also specify a time. Date, we are specifying year, month, and day. We can specify hour, minute, and second. So I'm going to say hour is 9, minute, and seconds. So 9 a.m. just to default it, just to keep things simple. Okay, let's go ahead and rebuild that. All right, I click here, look at my sessions, and let's say I want to modify Michael. He's busy on the 22nd. I'm going to put 21st. Okay, we have this. Now it's showing 9 o'clock. I hit OK. I exit, and now it's 9 o'clock on the 20. Okay, and now this is taken. And so now we can actually work with our sessions, right? We can actually do some interesting things with our sessions. Now, remember, when we have a successful match, we automatically create a session, right? So there's a session that's automatically created that we can modify and confirm later on. But it would also be nice to be able to chat with the person. Okay, it's one thing to have a session, but it's another way to have a chat. Maybe a chat is enough to have this exchange of skills, this skill swap. And so the idea is we're gonna have a session created, and we're also gonna have a chat created in case the user wants to just chat with the person. Now, we do not have any tables with chats or anything like that, so we need to create them now. And when it comes to chatting, we're going to be needing two tables. We're going to need a main chats table that's going to have all the various chats for, different people and stuff like that. And then we'll also need a chat messages table that's going to contain the messages for a specific chat. So let's start with a basic chats table. So we're going to do chats. The first thing that I want to do is I want to link this to a match, right? Because everything comes from a match. We're going to have a match. Next, what I want to do is I want to be able to store the people chatting. Okay. And I like to store them as an array of user IDs. And that way it's going to be easy to see if a particular chat is mine and display it. So I'm going to say user IDs here, and I'm going to set it as an array. Okay. So we're going to select this. We're going to define it as an array. And then I'm going to connect it. Next, we're going to do user names, okay? Because this allows us to display who the user is we're chatting with as well in a very efficient manner. And that's pretty much it, right? So we have ID, we have created, we have the match, we have the user IDs and user names. That's pretty much all that we need. So now let's go ahead and get our keys in order. This one is this. User IDs is going to be a text, right? We're not linking it to anything. We're just keeping it simple because we already have the match ID for that. But here it's just going to be easier to kind of look them up. And this is going to be text as well. Okay. So this is an array of text. This is an array of text. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and create this. Next, I'm going to go ahead and create a chat messages. And the first thing we need is the chat ID. Then we need the message, and we have created and we need the sender, right? Who is the sender? And that is going to be it's going to be a user ID, right? And so for that, I'm going to link it, right? This is going to be linked to another table in case we need to do some lookup or something like that. So this chat ID is this one here, and the sender ID is going to be linked to auth, and the message is just going to be text. Okay. So we have the chat that it belongs to. We have the sender and we have the message, and we also have the time it was sent, which is very, very important. So we're going to hit save here. And so now let's go ahead and create some dummy data for this chat. Let's say I'm chatting with Michael or something like that. So we're going to insert a row, and that way you can see how it needs to look. So we're going to select the record, and this is going to be, I think this is Michael. This is probably me and Mike. And now we need the user IDs. Okay. So if we let me go ahead and save it first so that it is saved, and then I'm going to fill it in. So the user IDs, right? We need to get it here. So we can go to user info, and we have this user ID. So this is me. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm just going to paste it right here. And this is Michael. I'm going to copy this. Now, all of this is going to be filled in automatically, right? Let me go ahead and do this. Okay. And let me go ahead. So this is Michael. Let me go ahead and fetch my user ID, copy cell content, go to chats, and we are going to paste it. Now, it doesn't really matter the order here or nothing like that. Well, it does matter because you want the usernames to be in the same order. So we have Michael and we have James. So that's what we're going to put here. And that's it. So now we're going to go to chat messages. We're going to insert a message, select the chat ID. Sender ID is, it's going to be James. Let's say I send the message first and I say, hey, how are you? Okay. So now we have our tables, our chat tables, and we have some sample data. The next thing that I want to do is I want to create the UI. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to create a new page. We're just going to do a blank page. We're going to call it chats. Okay. Now on this page, we're going to list all the chats where, we are a participant. So I'm going to say chats. And in fact, we could have probably duplicated. I don't know. Let's go ahead and duplicate it. Let's go ahead and delete it because we have a lot of lists. Let's go ahead and duplicate this one. It's going to be easy. So this one is going to be chats. Fix all of this. I'm going to change the icon just to keep the same kind of, I'm going to delete this, and I will also change the navbar icon, and I'm going to go to our command palette, type navbar, and I'm going to go ahead and put chats second to last because I want notifications to be last. Okay. And now we can actually query it. But before we are able to do it, we need to refresh the schema, Supabase, get schema. And now we can simply feed a list view here, right? So we're going to modify this. And what's nice about our setup is that we can just fed chats and we can create a filter. We can say, well, I want to make sure that user IDs contains me. Okay. That's, why I set it up this way. User, it contains me because I don't care who's the other person. I care that I'm a participant. Okay. This is a code expression. We're going to remove this. And what we want to do here is we want to do a combine. And what we want to do is we want to say chat with, and who is the person? And in order to get the other person, we need a code expression, okay? Because we need to pass a bunch of things. So we need to pass 2 arrays of strings, and we need a authenticated user. In fact, we have it on sessions. I don't know why I removed it. We can just reuse this one, okay? Come back to chats, come back here, and we can do combined chat with. And this is going to be the other user. Paste this here. We need to modify. So this is users. So this is going to be user IDs. This is going to be usernames. And this is going to be the authenticated user. Okay. Let me double check the code expression. Yep. So if the first one is me, then get the second one and get the name. Yeah, this should work. Okay. And it's going to say chat with whoever. And we are a member of only one chat. That means we should have just one record here. Okay. Now there is a click event here. We're going to remove it because we don't need it here. And let's see. Do we have a couple of errors? Yeah, we don't need this. Should be no issues. Okay. No issues. So let's go ahead and rebuild our app and let's see if the chats are showing up. at least. All right, there's our app. Now, if I go into chats, it's not displaying anything, and I know why, because I forgot about RLS policy, both of these tables. So we need to add an RLS policy. So it's a good one, because if you see this, you know why it's happening. We're going to do all, save this policy, and we are going to do the same thing to chats. Create policy. All right, there we go. Let's come back here. Let's go ahead and refresh our app, and that should hopefully display the chats. And there's the chat with Michael, because that's what we have, right? We have chats, and this is Michael. And so what's nice about the setup is that you can quickly and easily get your user ID, look it up here, and get it, and get the name to display it without doing crazy views and stuff like that. Now, the second thing we need to do is we need to create a page to display the chat info. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to go ahead and create a new page, chat messages. And the idea is, if you click on the chat, it's going to pass the chat ID here. Okay. And so, in fact, we can pass a lot of things. We can pass the chat ID. We can pass the other user. So that way we don't need to calculate it. And let's go ahead and do that right now. Create our parameters, chat ID, which is an integer, and I'm going to say other user. So we can display it up on top, chat with whoever, string. Okay. So we have this, and now I can say combine text. I can say chat with, because that's what we're going to be passing, and that should do it. We also need a back button, and this back button is a bar default button. That's the back button. Yeah, that will display it. And let's go back. So now let's go ahead and create the UI. So we have a column, which is how every page starts out with. What we need to do is we need a list view. Okay, we're going to be displaying stuff. Now, the way that we're going to be displaying it will depend who the user is. If it's me, we want to display it on the right-hand side. If it's the other user, we want to display it on the left-hand side. That's kind of how chat apps work, at least in my experience. And so what we want to do is we want to create kind of a conditional, right? And so I'm going to start with a row, and this row is going to be aligned to the right. And that means that it's us. Okay. And don't worry, I'm going to do everything in just a second. But inside this row, I want to have a container. And inside this container, I want to have text. Okay. Now this container, we're going to remove this so that it takes the space, and we are going to give it a little bit of padding so that it expands. We're going to give text a little bit of padding. So it looks something like this. And we can also give it a border radius of 8, I think is nice. Okay, that looks nice. And we can give it a box shadow. That looks kind of cool. I don't know. That looks cool. Maybe that's a bit too much. 2, maybe. I don't know. Okay. So something like this. And now what we can do is we can feed list view with the chat messages, right? So we're going to go over here, add this query, Supabase, chat messages, list of rows. We want to just get our chat, right, equal to chat ID, what we are passing. So that way we're not getting everybody's messages. And for this, we want it to be set to the message. Okay. And I'm going to put a default value. Okay. And now what we want to do is we want to wrap this in a stack, and then you can duplicate it, because a stack, basically displays one on top of the other, but we're never going to have that because, we're going to have conditional visibility here. Okay. So this row is mine. So I'm going to say row mine, and this one is row other. Okay. And row other is going to be left. And now we have both messages showing up at the same time. This will never happen. And so this row is going to have conditional visibility. So we're going to say condition, single condition, and we're going to say if message sender ID is equal to us, right? Authenticated user. And now we can copy it, because for this other one, it's going to be the opposite. We're going to paste this authenticated user. And that way they will never be on the same row. A row is either going to have this message or this message. It's never going to have both messages. And that's exactly what we want. Okay. And yeah, it looks good. Looks really clean. The only thing we need to do is add a bottom kind of area to send the message. So we're going to do a row on the bottom. Going to do a row, and I am going to create a text input, and I'm going to put a button. So we have that, give it a little bit of padding. Okay, so something like this is nice. And this is going to say send. Now, right now it doesn't look good because this list view is not taking up the whole space. This should be all the way at the bottom. And so what we need to do is we need to push this list view all the way at the bottom. And because this list view is a child of column, we can go over here and we can have this expansion like this. And so it pushes it all the way to the bottom. And this is going to be the nav bar and stuff. So do not worry about the space over here. Okay. Now we need the logic, right? So here I'm going to say, well, this is going to be just empty. And I'm going to give this input a name, input text, so that, it's a little bit clearer. And now we're going to add an action. This is going to be insert row for Supabase, and the table is chat messages, and we need all of them except these two. We have the chat ID, we have the sender ID. This is always going to be us, right? It's never going to be the other user. And the message is whatever is here, right? In this text input. Just type input. You're going to see this here. And that's it. Another nice thing that we can do is we can clear this field. Right? So we don't have the same text over there, staying there. So I'm going to open this up. I'm going to add another action, and you can just type clear, and you can select clear, and you can select the field that you want to clear. And that's it. You're going to send a message, and this is automatically going to be cleared. And another nice thing that we can do is we can refresh this query, right? So you can do refresh database, and you can just refresh this list. Okay? Because we have new stuff coming in. That's pretty much it. So let's go ahead and rebuild our app and see if it works as expected. All right, click here. We have chat. Well, we forgot the link. We forgot the clickable, make it clickable. So I'm going to make the whole thing clickable, this whole container. And I'm going to click here, add an action. We're going to do navigate to chat messages. And we're going to pass all the good stuff. We're going to pass the chat ID. From this chat row, we have the ID, and the other user, well, we can do a code expression, right? So we can simply come over here, copy this code expression, so that way we don't have to redo it. Go back to this action, come over here and just paste this expression. And that's going to be the other user. It's going to pass the other user. All right, let's go ahead and refresh this. Let's click here. Now I can click on it, and we are in the chat, and we see the message, right? This says text field. We need to remove that, but I can send a message. At least I should be. I can send another message, right? Hey 2. I do that, and it's displayed here. I can do hey 3, and it's displayed here. And so now if we go to our database and we go to chat messages, we're going to be seeing all of these chat messages, right? The same sender, the same chat. And now if the other user logs in, and they're gonna see the screen, but they're gonna see my messages on the left hand side, because these messages do not belong to an authenticated user, right? When they log in, right? And so let's go ahead and make a couple of changes. This text field there, we need to remove it because it's kind of self-explanatory. Maybe create a border. Let's create a border. I love doing that. Let's do an outline, and let's do a border width, border color. Okay, so something like this, and maybe do a little bit of padding, something like this. So that looks nice. Now there's one more thing that we can do, and this is an optional step if you want, is I want to display when that message was sent. Right? Because you kind of see that in text messages, and this is an optional step. It's up to you. We have that data, so we can do it. And I want to display it underneath the message. Okay, I want to display it underneath the message. And if I want to display it underneath the message, I need to wrap it in a column. So I'm going to wrap this in a column, and now I can duplicate it, and I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, maybe 10. Yeah, maybe 10 is going to work nicely. We have a lot of padding here. That may be too much. If I remove the padding and I just pad it on the bottom, and I can do the same thing, right? So I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to wrap this in a column, put this here, and we have that there. And so now you want to feed it, not the message, obviously. You want to feed it created at. And this is where we can have a little bit of fun, because you can format it. And what I like to do is, yeah, you can display any of these, but what I like to do is relative. And this is created, and same thing here, relative. And create. All right, there we go. Let's go ahead and rebuild our app and see how it looks. All right, click here, and all right, go to chats, Click here, and now it says 20 minutes, and we need to do padding here, right? We have padding here, but we don't have padding here. So I'm gonna go ahead and fix my padding in case it's longer than the message. And same thing here. All right, let's go ahead and refresh that. Okay, click this. All right, now that looks better. So how are you? 21 minutes ago, 5 minutes ago, we can do another one in a moment ago. Okay, and that is our chat functionality. And the only thing that's left right now is when we have that trigger, we need to also create a chat, okay? So that a chat appears, and we can do that right now. Let's go to our SQL editor. Where was the trigger? Okay, this is the trigger here. And as you can see, it's doing a notification, it's doing a session. And what we can do is we can have it create a chat as well. All right, so we have our new snippet. I'm gonna go ahead and execute this. Okay, success. And so now when we create a match, it will automatically create not only a notification, but also a chat over here, right? And so now when we create a match, it's going to do a notification, a session, and a chat as well. Okay. And that way we're going to have all of that available. So let's go ahead and test this out. All right. So here's our SQL, which is what happens when a user either accepts or, requests to match. And this should trigger our, the whole workflow, right? Creating a notification, creating a session, creating a chat, lots of fun things. So let's go ahead and execute this, and no rows returned. So that was successfully. And so now we have this one as accepted here. If you go to notifications, we should have a notification, and we have some notifications here as well. If we go into sessions, let's take a look. We have a new session, okay, scheduled here. And if we go into chats, we should have a new chat, and we have a new chat, okay, Tom and James. And it is correctly set, right? This is correct because this is A is mine. It's in the right order, right? This is second. This is second. So it's creating a lot of things. And now let's go ahead and rebuild our app, reload our app so that you can see all of this new stuff. All right, there we go. Come over here, and now we have another chat. Okay, we had chat with Michael. Now we have chat with Tom. We have a session with Tom. We can change it. And as you can see, now Tom has 2 sessions. Okay, he's busy on 22 and 20. Okay, and one of them is ours, right? So we can change it to, let's say, 25. And now it's changed to 25. And so we can see that 22, 25. Okay. Well, both of them are ours actually, right? But we have 2 sessions with Tom, which is fine. And so we can change all of this. And let's say 22, I want to make it 23. And I need to remove this. And now it is 23. Okay. We need to make sure it is sorted by the date in ascending order as well. We have chat. I can say, hey, Tom. Okay. Tom will get that message. He can respond. And so it's starting to come together. Let's go ahead and fix some of these minor issues there. Let's go ahead and fix the calendar when we are, this thing. We have these 2 actions. We just need 1 action. We don't need this. Delete action. Okay, now it's just gonna change the session time. And the last one I want to change is sessions. We want to sort them by by the date in ascending order. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to say session created at, scheduled at, and I'm going to say in increasing order. And that should fix the issues. Let's go ahead and rebuild our app. All right. Click here. We have the sessions, and now they are in the right order. So we have 2 sessions with Tom. We have a chat with Tom, okay, because we had the old session that did not create a chat. And maybe we just want to have just 1 chat, right? Or maybe we want to have 2 chats, 1 for each session. And then we have our recommendations, Tom and Michael. And we want to make sure that on the front page, we are excluding ourselves. Very, very important. And so we can do that here in Supabase. This is this homepage view. We want to make sure that we are excluding ourselves. In fact, we can do that in the app, right? Because we have all of this data, right? So if we come to our home, we have this grid view, and we're doing this list of rows. And what we want to do is we're filtering by us. And we want to make sure that match user ID is not us. And so we can do an AND filter, and we can do match user ID does not equal to us. Okay. Very, very important. So we're filtering by the browsing user, okay, which is us. We're trying to get us, but we want to make sure that it's not like equal, right? Because if Michael logs in, right, he's gonna see himself, right? That's the only case. Michael is gonna see himself, okay? So like if I log in as Michael, let me go ahead, or maybe I am logged in as Michael right now. Okay, I could be logged in as Michael. Let me go ahead and refresh it. I think I am logged in as Michael, or maybe not. Let's go ahead and refresh that. No, I'm not logged in as Michael. I'm probably logged in as James. And to test it out, let's just display the logged in person. I'm gonna do combine, and then I'm gonna display the logged in. I'm gonna do emails so that it's easy to see. That's only just for debugging. It's not gonna be in production unless that's what you want. Okay, so I'm logged in as James, which is this one. And as you can see, I am not matching myself. So if I'm browsing as James, I believe it's, I'm going to be seeing these two, right? But if I log in as Michael, I should not see himself. Let me go ahead and log in as Michael, because Michael here, he should see these two people. He should see the other two people, not himself. Okay, and there you have it. He's not seeing himself because we're filtering himself out. We're seeing Tom and we're seeing James. Okay. Now you may have noticed that we added this to see who is the user that is logged in. And there's really no easy way to log out. And so what we need to do is we need to create a page that shows us a little bit of info about the logged in person, as well as give us the ability to log out. And this is an important page that you need to have in your app. So we're going to come here, new page. And if you look at settings, you're going to find some nice templates that you can use. So let's go ahead and start a really simple one. I'm going to do this one, create page, and we want it to be on the nav bar because we want it to be accessible. And I like to have this last. And maybe this one is better. And let's go ahead and configure it. So this top, and what do we want? We want it to be blue. We want this to be white. We want this to be our name. We don't, and let's put the email first because we don't have the name. We need to get the name. And in order to get the name, we need to do a query. And you do that by selecting this top level. You're going to do a query. And this is where we're going to be querying this user's info table. And this is going to be just single user ID is equal to authenticated user. Okay. And so now all of this data is available throughout the app. So now we can put the profile picture, and you can just type profile. That's going to find it. You're going to find the name. And we have a bunch of things here. But most importantly is the logout. Right, so if we go over here, we need to make sure log out Supabase. So that way we can see who we are, but we can also log out. So what is this issue here? No issues. Let's go ahead and rebuild our app. Let's go ahead and log in. Logging in as James. Okay, I'm seeing Michael and I'm seeing Tom because here, I'm logging in as James over here. And so we have Michael and this is Tom. So we have two people. Okay. And if I click here, we have profile, we have James, and this actually works, which is nice. Dark mode is cool. And we have our app working in dark mode. How cool is that? Really nice. And we can log out. And that's going to log us out. So now we can log in as somebody else like Mike. And now Michael sees these two people. Not this one because that's himself, but he sees these other two people, Tom and James. Now, the next thing that I want to work on is the push notifications, right? So wouldn't it be nice if there's some event that's happening? Maybe we received a message, maybe a match was approved, and we actually get a push notification. Wouldn't that be cool? Fortunately, it is fairly easy to do. And so we have this guide from Supabase that you can just Google for or go to their docs and read it. But it involves a couple of things to set up, right? So we're going to be using this Firebase Cloud Messaging, FCM, which is a push notification offered by Google or Firebase. And so there are two steps that we need to do. We need to first set up a table here, and then we need to actually set up something called a function, right? This is going to be an edge function. And then we need to set up our FCM, deploy the function, create the database webhook, and send push notification. There's also a video here on YouTube that you can watch as well. But this is actually fairly easy. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create these tables. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go to my SQL editor and I'm going to create a new snippet. I'm going to paste this. And the thing is, I have profiles and I have notifications here, right? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this table because I already have a notifications table, right? I have this notification. So I'm going to go ahead and rename it. I'm going to just call it push notifications. Okay, then we're gonna go ahead and execute this, and success, no rows return. Okay, next we need to do this, right? So we need to set up a cloud edge function. And what is an edge function? Well, an edge function is a function that runs in your Supabase instance. So unlike a function that you may define on FlutterFlow or any of that front end stuff, this function is going to run along with Supabase. Okay, so we need to do a couple of things. We need to do this, and we can do that in a shell. So let me go ahead and do this. So I have my terminal open here, and I'm going to go ahead and create a directory in my terminal, and I'm going to switch to that directory, and then I'm going to go ahead and execute these commands. Okay, I'm going to say yes. Now I'm going to create this edge function. Okay. Now, if I check my directory, I have Supabase in here, and I have this edge function there, right? So if I go into push, I have this edge function. This is just a sample function. And so it's telling me add the following code to this file that we just looked at. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to just edit it, right? You can use any editor that you want. So I'm going to delete all this, and I'm going to paste this here. Okay, I'm going to save this. Next, I need to do FCM setup, which is Firebase Cloud Messaging. Okay. And so you can read the guide here to kind of learn more about it, what you want to do. But in a nutshell, what you want to do is you want to go into firebase.google.com, and you want to make sure that you have a project there, okay? And so as you can see, I have a couple of projects here. So I'm going to select this project here, and I'm going to go into messaging. Here, I can test the different messaging, the different push notifications. But what I want to do is I want to come here, project settings, and what I want to do is I want to go into service accounts, and I want to generate a new private key. So when I do that, it downloads the key on my computer. And according to this tutorial here, that is exactly what it wants, right? So it wants to generate this new key, save the service private key as service account JSON under Supabase functions directory. And so now, I downloaded the key, saved it, and now I have it in this, the file here. Now it wants it in Supabase functions. That is one level above. So I'm going to move it back. Okay. And now if you do the path, you can see that this is Supabase functions, and we have this key right here. Okay. Next thing it wants to do, it wants us to deploy, link your local Supabase project to the remote Supabase project. We're going to do Supabase link, and I need to select my project. So I have lots of projects here, and this is skill swap. Okay. So I'm going to select skill swap, and I'm going to link it. So it wants my database password. I'm going to skip that for now. And now it is linked, and now I can deploy it. Okay. I can just deploy the function. And so this function is going to run on Supabases, right? It's going to run on my Supabase instance. I'm going to deploy this. It's telling me it cannot connect with my Docker. So it's telling me that in order to deploy, so it's telling me that Docker Desktop is a prerequisite for local development. So you need to download this Docker Desktop. And so you can head over to docker.com and simply download Desktop for your platform. They have it for an Intel Mac, it's Apple Silicon Mac, all of these Windows, and you can download it for Linux as well. Now, once you have Docker running, you can execute that previous command, and that's going to go ahead and push your function. Okay. So now that we have this pushed, we need to create a database webhook. And the reason we need a database webhook is that if we put something in this table, we need to execute this function, which in turn is going to connect to Firebase cloud messaging, and that will send a notification to your app. Okay. And so with my Supabase dashboard open here, we need to go ahead and create a webhook. And so I'm going to select my project, this one right here, and I'm going to go into database, and I am going to go ahead and create a new hook right here, webhooks. We need to enable webhooks on this project. Okay, we've enabled webhooks. Now we can go over here, database, and we have webhooks here, and I can click here and create a new webhook. So I'm going to create a new webhook, and it's telling me that the name is going to be push notification. Now the table needs to be this public, and this is going to be push notifications table. We want to do it on insert configuration. This is going to be Supabase edge function, and it's telling us push edge function, post, and 1000, right? As the timeout, and everything else looks good. We're gonna go ahead and create this webhook. Okay, so we've created this webhook, and what this webhook does is that anytime there's a new record on this push notifications table, it's gonna execute this edge function, and it's also gonna take some of the data that was inserted and use it, to send this push notification to Firebase's cloud messaging, which in turn is gonna send it to our app. Now, in order to send a push notification, we need to make sure that we have an FCM token. Now, what exactly is an FCM token? Well, an FCM token is a token that is used to identify a particular device. And this is a token that's handed to us by our Firebase project. And in order to get this token, we need to initialize this code, right? Initialize a connection to FCM, and that's going to give us a token, okay? And so I'm going to go back to my app here, and I'm going to show you how to do it, right? So what we need to do is we need to create a custom action. I'm just going to call it initialize messaging. And I have some code here ready that I've used before, that I've worked with before, and we're going to be using it. We also need a couple of dependencies like Firebase messaging, and we're going to be using an awesome notifications plugin, and you can find it on pub.dev. It creates this really cool notifications. Okay. And so the idea is we're going to request permission from the user. The user is going to authorize us, and FCM is going to give us a token that we can use. Okay. So I'm going to save this custom action, and we also need to store this token in our app. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to create an app state variable called FCM. This is going to be a string. And so that way, as soon as we get this FCM token, we can save it and make it available throughout the app. And we also need to make sure that we are initializing this initialized messaging. So we can come over here and add it here. Okay. And that way it's going to get initialized when the app starts. We also need to set up our permissions, right? And this is something that we haven't done before, but it's important because we're interacting with the user. So we're going to go into permissions, and we need to turn on notification. And now we have this permission set. After we've initialized FCM in our FlutterFlow app, we need to enter this token into this profiles table, okay? And we can do this at any top level. So let's say we're interested in chats. Well, you can do it when chats gets loaded, right? You can do something like this. You can simply add an action, insert row, and we are going to insert it into profiles here. Let's go ahead and refresh it. And now we have this profiles. We're going to go over here, and we're going to just add these fields. So this is going to be an authenticated user, and this is going to be the token. And the token, we're getting it from app state, which is going to be set up when the app loads. Okay. So this is going to automatically enter here. And so now anytime we want to send a push notification, we can simply insert a record here, and it will figure out our FCM token that it needs to identify the app. Okay. And so one last thing we need to do is, when we are sending this chat message, we want to create a record in this table, and that's going to trigger a push notification. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to create an action. I'm going to do an insert, and I'm going to say, I want to insert. So we don't need this. We don't need this. And so for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm just going to send it to myself, and then we'll modify it. So I'm going to send this message to myself. So anything I type, even to another user, I want it to be sent to me. And the body is going to be simple. It's going to be the message, right? So we're going to go over here, and this is the message. So anytime we enter a message here, remember we have a trigger with a webhook. So that's automatically going to pick up. It's going to look up in the profiles here, this FCM token that should be inserted when we run our app, and it's going to know who to send it to. Now, there's one more thing that you need to do before you run your app. You need to set it up with Firebase, right? So you want to go into So you want to open up your palette and type Firebase, and you want to enter your project ID. So if we go here, you can see that if I go here, project settings, you can see that this is my project ID. Let me go ahead and copy that. I'm going to paste it. I'm going to hit connect. Okay, now it's successfully connected. I'm going to generate my config files. So that's pretty much it. We've connected it to our Firebase, and we've generated the config files that we need. And so this means our app will be able to connect directly to FCM in order to get this special token that we need. And so the best way to test our app with push notifications and everything, and this is something that you should be doing, is to run it in a simulator, okay, instead of running it here on FlutterFlow. It is, it's fine to kind of test it while you're developing, but when you want to test out like the major features in your app and kind of the overall app before you launch, you definitely want to test it in a simulator or on a real device. So there's a couple of ways of doing it. You can click here and you have an option called FlutterFlow Local Run, and you can just click here. But you need to do it from a desktop app. Okay, I'm using the web app. So for me, the best approach is by clicking here and using something called FlutterFlow CLI. And so you want to just copy this. Then you want to go to your terminal, paste that command. That's going to go ahead and download your entire source code. Next, you want to switch to that directory that was created. Execute your favorite browser here. I'm using Cursor. You can use VS Code as well. And this is going to load your app here. So everything looks good, except we have some of these imports that have this red wiggly line. So you want to go ahead and comment it out. Next thing you want to do is you want to select your simulator. So I have this Android simulator running. You can click over here and you can select it. I have iPhone. I have another simulator that we can use. You can use real devices. So I'm going to be using this Android simulator, and then I'm going to hit run without debugging, and that's going to compile my app and transfer it over to the simulator so that we can run it on almost real device, right? And so if it works on the simulator, you can bet that it will work on a real device as well. All right, so here's our app, and as you can see, the first thing it's asking me is if we want to allow it to send notifications, okay? And that's because we requested that permission. We're going to say allow, of course, and now we need to log in, okay? I'm going to go ahead and log in, okay? I went ahead and logged in, and I'm seeing the main screen, and now I'm going to come over here, and that's going to get me that token, okay? That's kind of how we have it set up. And so now, if I go into my Supabase, I should see that token. So we're back in our Supabase. I go to my tables, I go into profiles, and there's my token, okay? Which means that I'll be able to send push notifications anytime I send a message. Very, very important that you see this token associated with your user ID. And so now let's go ahead and try chatting. Let's say I want to chat with Michael. I'm going to send a message, and there's the notification. Okay. So we need to fix it. It says nobody. That's okay. I think it's not, there's some configuration, and we can also see it here, right? Skill swap notification from Supabase. We can fix that. I can do it again, and there's another notification. You see how it works? Back in our Supabase, if we take a look at push notifications, we should see, so we're not seeing body, right? We need to make sure that body is set up correctly, because it's putting in the fields. When we are putting in the fields, we're not putting in the body correctly. So let's go ahead and fix it in our app. Come back over here, and when we send it, body is input text. That should, it's wrong. It's not input text. It is input text, actually. Because we clear it. You see how we clear it here. So we need to do it before we clear it. Okay, very, very important. Let's go ahead and run our app here. I'm going to download this, copy that, re-execute this, go back to our editor, comment out the lines with the red squiggly underlines, and we're going to rerun it. Run without debugging. It's going to build it out, and it's going to copy it over and run it here for us. And that should hopefully work correctly. All right, there's the app. And now if you come over here and you want to chat with Michael, and I say, yo, man, okay? Or no, man. Let's see if that works. And now it's displaying it here. You see that? It's displaying here, notification from Supabase, no, man. And you can customize it, right? You can do all kinds of interesting things. You can customize it however you want. And of course, we need to make sure that it's sending it to Michael, to not us. And if Michael is not using the app, he's going to get the notification when he logs in, okay? Because that's how FCM works, right? It's going to remember it, and it's going to send it when he logs in. Because when you log in, you tell FCM that, hey, I logged in. I'm this user, I'm that user, I'm logged in. And we store that table, and so it's going to work. And so We'll fix it a little bit later in this tutorial. Okay, so let's quickly make that change where the other user is going to get notifications, not us, right? So if we go to chats and if we go over here, we are passing a bunch of things. We're passing the chat ID on the other user. We can also pass the other user ID because I believe this is the name. Right, that's the actual name. So this is going to be the other user ID. I'm going to say confirm. And now I'm going to do pass and I'm going to come over here. And now we need to find that user, right? And that's easy with the code expression. We need to get a list of IDs. And so this is going to be the list of IDs. And this is the authenticated user so that we know who we are. I'm going to come over here. This is going to be a list of IDs. And then we need to decide who is us so that we can send the other user. So I'm going to do user ID 0. If that's us, right, var2 is us, then we want to return the other user, right? So I'm just going to do user IDs 1. Otherwise, just do user ID 0, which is themselves. So what we're saying is user IDs. What is the problem? Undefined user. Well, yeah, we can rename it. User IDs, and this is auth. Let's go ahead and rename it. So what we are saying is that if the first item in the list is us, then return the second item. Otherwise, return the first item. And that should provide the other user ID here. And now, if you go to chat messages, we have it here. We can just use that. So we're going to open this up. And now this user ID is going to be page parameter other user ID, because that's, that's where we want to send this notification to. And this is going to be input text. We can customize it. We can do something like code expression. We can do, not code. We can do something like combine, and we can do new message, and then we can display the message. Okay. And so the other user is going to get it, right? Because we are logged in. We're, using the app. We're sending it to the other user. And so when the user logs in, they're going to see this message. Okay, let me show you how this works. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to download the app, paste it here. Okay, come back over here. This is downloading. We're going to comment all of this out. And now to show you the ultimate test, I'm going to start 2 devices that will be chatting to each other and getting these notifications. So this first device, I'm going to log in on this first device, and I'm also going to start another device. So I'm going to create another emulator, and on the second emulator, I'm going to log in as another user. All right. So first I'm going to go ahead and run this app on my simulator, the original simulator here. And I'm going to log in. Okay, it's asking me about notifications. We're going to allow it. And I'm going to go ahead and log in. Okay, so now I'm logged in here. Okay, and as you can see, this actually works. Remember, this was a bug. This has no stars and this has 5 stars. So it works on a device. It didn't properly work in FlutterFlow. So that bug is fixed. Next, I'm going to go ahead and launch this app on the second Flutter emulator. I'm going to go ahead and run without debugging. Okay, we're going to allow because it's a new install. And I'm going to log in as Michael. All right. So here we are logged in with 2 simulators here, right? We have Michael and we have James. And so now I can send a message, and the same thing, Michael can send a message to James. So I can say, hey, and we get a message right here that says, hey, James. Okay. And I can reply to it. I can say, and now we get a message here that says, hey, Michael. Okay. And so this way we have these 2 devices that are registered in the network, and they can communicate with each other and get push notifications. Next, I want to work on the favorites functionality. Okay. So if you recall, we have this favorites table, and we are tracking, the user ID of the person who favored another person, right? So this is the person that was browsing. They decided to click favorite, and this was the person that was saved. Okay. So it's like this source to target kind of thing. And this allows us to easily kind of display all the favorites, anywhere that we want. And so the way that I want to implement this is I want to have a page where it's just going to be a simple list page. We're going to list all the favorites, and here we can delete them. And that's about it, right? So you're going to see the favorites. You'll be able to delete them. Now on the main page, right? Like on the, home page, you'll be able to actually favorite them, right? And the ones that you already favorited, they're going to have some kind of a mark there as well. Okay. And so let's go ahead and start out with a list page, right? This is going to be our favorite page. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this. I'm going to say favorites. I'm going to come here and I'm going to say favorites. And I'm also going to go to our nav bar and I want to make sure that this is right here, something like that. Just our favorites. And I'm going to change this. Yeah, a heart looks good. Okay, and let's go ahead and change this icon, do a little bit of changing, and well, this is just gonna be text. And what do we want to do? And yeah, we're gonna list the different people, right? So we're gonna have maybe the image. Do we want to have this? Yeah, let's have this. Let's actually make it a little bit bigger, and this is going to be. And in fact, let's go ahead and rename it to an image because I want to display the avatar, right? So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to delete this, and the image, I'm going to make it 50 by 50, if that's not too much. Yeah, that's perfect. And so this is going to be the image. This is going to be the information about the person, their name, whatever you want. And then I'm going to have a button or an action or an icon button that's going to delete it, right? So let's go ahead and spread these out. And then I'm going to have this, trash. This is restore from trash. I just want like a trash icon. Do we have a trash icon? That's what I want. Okay. And so this is just going to be a button, and I'm going to make this white. I'm going to make the icon, and that's it. Okay. Something like this. And so the idea is we're going to list the favorites. We're going to list the picture. We're going to list some information. This is just going to be text, and you'll be able to delete it. Okay. And that's about it. And on the main page, on the home page, you'll be able to favorite people that you want to favorite. Okay. And so here we need to list, and because we have an ID, we need to create a new view. Okay, so I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go to my Supabase AI and I'm going to say create a new view, favorites view that will display user ID from favorites table, user ID favorite user ID favorites table, and then avatar, profile picture, bio from favorites table, user info from user info table from all via the favorite user ID. Okay, let's see if this works. Shouldn't be too hard. This is not a complicated view. All right, there we have it. And so it's using F user ID and then UI user table, and we are joining it on this. Yeah, this is correct. That should be correct. Okay, let's go ahead and run it, and let's go back here and we should have it. Let's go ahead and refresh it, and we should see this new view here, favorites view. All right, so okay, so this right here, this was a person that favorited this person, and this should be Tom. It should not be from this person. This should be Tom. So let's double check real quick. Where's Tom? Tom is A1. I think that's correct. Yeah, A1. Okay, so this is perfect. This is exactly what we want. And so now we can refresh our Supabase, come over here, and we can change this, right? So we can change it to favorites view. List of rows, we want to filter where the user ID is us, because we're looking at our favorites. And we want to sort them by name in increasing order. Okay? And here we want to just display the name. And here we want to display the image. Name, and then this button. And then this button is going to delete the favorite. And in order to delete the favorite, we need the ID. Okay, and so we need to change our view. So if we come over here, this is our view. We can open in SQL editor, and all we need to do is we need to get this ID. So we have the user ID, but we need to get F ID, and that's it. And we're done. So I'm going to say create or replace. Let's see if it's able to let us do it. And it cannot, because we are changing it, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just drop this view. And so now if we come back over here to our table editor and we go here, we should have an ID. We have an ID of that favorite. That way we can work with it, right? In this case, we're going to be deleting it. And so here I'm going to add an action. I'm going to say delete. In fact, we need to refresh our database. Come back here. And now I'm going to come over here. What's this issue? Yeah, the unfinished action. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to say delete row. We want to do from favorites table, and the matching rows is going to be on ID, favorites row ID. Okay. And that's pretty much it. And we can also do like a refresh database request list view. Okay. And that's going to delete it. Okay. That's going to delete this right here. Now let's go ahead and run this app in a simulator to see how it looks on a real device. All right. Here's the app. And if we go over here, you can see that we have Tom favorite here. And if I click here, he should be deleted, and he is deleted. So if I go back here and we'll take a look at favorites view, it's completely empty, and favorites is completely empty. Next, I want to create a way where we can favorite the different recommendations that we're getting. Okay. So when I run this app, I want to, save it for later, right? Maybe I don't want to create the session right now or anything like that. I want to do it for later. And so let's go ahead and do that. So how are we going to do it? Well, we have a column here, remember, and we have this rating bar that displays it. And to favorite, we can create, what I would recommend is creating some kind of a star next to this. Okay. So this row, what we can do is we can have an icon button actually, and we can display it right there. Now we can make it super small, maybe 20, and I'm going to make it something like this. That's probably, yeah, it's too small. Let's make this, let's start 40, 24. If I make this 20, okay, that looks a little bit better. And let's go ahead and change it to favorite, something like this. And I'm going to change the fill color. Actually, I'm going to remove it, and I'm going to make the icon color black. So what we can do is we can make it something like this, right? We can have this, we can have the rating, and we can have the favorite right here. And so this button is going to serve two things, right? By default, we're going to display this one. Okay. And if you click on it, you're going to favorite it, and then it's going to be displayed in some other way, like a filled one or something, to let the people know that it's favored. And then if you click it again, you're going to automatically unfavorite it. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an action on it. I'm going to do an insert row into favorites, and we're gonna set a bunch of fields. Remove these are defaults. User ID is our auth user. Favorite user ID is going to be the matched user ID, the actual user here. Okay, what we have. Okay. So that's gonna create it. So let's go ahead and run this app and see how it looks. Now, when we run the app, this is what we see. And so if I click on any one of them, we should have a new record created in our database. And so if I click on this, we can go back and we should see a new record created. And so this is the logged in user. This is me, and I favorited this person here, Michael. Okay. But there's still a couple of things that we need to do. First, we need to identify if we already favored it or not. And in that case, we need to, unfavorite it by deleting it. Okay. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that we need to mark these things in a certain way when we display it. Okay. Now, an easy way would be to do another query per item, but that's a performance hit. And so what we want to do is we want to change this homepage view to mention if it's actually a favorite or not. So we have this browsing user ID. And so for each of these items, we want to, add and make sure if it's favorite or not. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create I'm going to update this view to tell me just that. Okay, I'm going to reset this, and I'm going to say modify homepage match view, add a field favorite boolean that will check whether this specific matched, matched user ID is favorited browsing user ID. All right, so there we have it. Let's see if that's going to work. I'm going to go ahead and copy that, and I'm going to go ahead and execute it right here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another view. I'm not going to overwrite this view because I want to make sure that we don't destroy a perfectly working view with what we have here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, create another view so that way I can compare it. Go to our table editor and we have this too, and let's see what we have. Okay, so I think it's good, right? We have the same records, same data, and now it's marked. So the only favorite right now is let's see, is Micah, which is correct, which is the person that I favorited. Okay, so looks like this view is doing exactly that, right? 05005. Let's quickly double check. 05005. Yeah, looks good. Looks like it's the right data. And so what we're going to do is we are going to override the view because now that I checked, everything looks good. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this view in testing, right? I'm going to come over here. I'm going to go to Supabase. I'm going to refresh my schema and I'm going to come back here. And now I'm going to go ahead and load this view. Okay, so now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to replace this view. And so now if we refresh, come back here, we have a favorite one. So we can delete this view. That's fine. Let me go ahead and refresh my schema. And so now what I can do is I can conditionally display the icon color. So I can come over here and I can say conditional value. Here I can say favorite. If it's favorite, I can make it, you know, maybe display, make it red. Otherwise, make it black. Okay, so something like this. And the other thing that we need to do is we need to react with the clicking. Okay, so when we click on it, we want something to happen. So if we come over here, we don't want to blindly insert. We need a condition. So I'm going to add a condition. I'm going to move it up. And this condition is going to determine, right? So we have access to favorite. Right? So I can say if it's already favorite, if it's true, then we don't want to do an insert. We want to do delete. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste this here, right? Because if it's false, we want to insert. Otherwise, we want to do delete, right? So I'm going to do delete. And here we're going to do matching rows. And all we need to do is match up the browsing. We're going to say, you know, user ID is this. And the favorite user ID is that, right? So user ID is going to be the authenticated user, right? So I'm going to say authenticated user. And then browsing, this is the one that's on the list, right? Favorite user ID, we're going to come over here. We're going to put this matched user ID equal. Okay, and that will delete it. Okay? And then what we want to do is we want to do a refresh database request. We want to do this grid view and that should work. Okay, no issues here. Go ahead and run it in our simulator. Okay, there we see it. And you see it's red because it's favorited, right? It's kind of this red outline. I think it's the border. It's not the fill color. We can change that, but still. And so now if I click this one, it should favorite this one, right? I'm going to favorite top. And you see it is now red. So if we go back to our favorites table, we can come over here. We have another favorite. So this is me and I favorite this one. Okay. Now, if we want to unfavorite, we're going to click here and it's going to know that it is favorite and it should delete it. So we're going to click here and we are getting an error. And let me see what the issue is. And it's not deleting it. So there's an issue somewhere. Let me go ahead and double check what the issue is. So if we come over here, this, if it's true and we click on it, we need to delete and we're doing matching rows. A user ID is authenticated user, which is going to be this one. That is correct because that's the person who is favorite. Oh, it's not set correctly. That's the problem. And the favorite user ID is going to be this matched user ID. That's what's up. All right. So that should be set. Let me go and close it. Let me click again. Double check. Okay. Sometimes, you know, yeah, it's there. Okay. Let's go ahead and try this again. There's the app. Let's restart this. Okay. So they're both favorite. If we click here, it's unfavored. You see now it's a different color. So that was just a minor bug. And if we go back here, we have just one row. Now, if I do the same thing here, I did that twice. I do it again. It's unfavored. We go back here. This is going to get refreshed and there should be nothing there. Now, if I do this favored, I do this, both are favored. And if we go back here, they're both there. Okay. And I can delete them here if I want. Delete, delete. And if I go back here, they're not there. All right, so I went ahead and cleaned this app up a little bit further. I also changed the UI to display two items in this grid view instead of 3 items. I think it gives it a little bit more space. I think 3 would be a little tight. It's going to be too much of a tight fit on mobile devices. And so it looks kind of cool. You know, you can click here, you can unfavorite, and I also change the icons to make them a little bit more faint. And when you click it, it becomes red. And, you know, we have the favorites appearing here. So if I favorite this, come back here, we have this favorite. I can delete it here. I can delete it there. We have this. I also added minutes here. We have these sessions. We have the chats, right? We have the chats with push notifications. We have notifications, and we have this profile here where we can change it into a dark mode, light mode, etc., etc. And so obviously you can take this further. You can improve this app, you can modify it, you can use it as a base for pretty much, you know, all kinds of different apps. It could be an app such as this one, right, that you're building, or maybe a much more complex app where this type of app would merely be a subsystem inside that bigger app. So it's really up to you how far you want to take it. But regardless, what your next steps are going to be, you definitely need to join our amazing Patreon community, because when you do, you're going to get access to a ton more content. And that includes being able to view and also clone this app and do pretty much anything that you want with it. You can ask questions inside of our Patreon community. You can communicate with other members. You're going to gain access to more content. You're going to gain access to all my previous apps, as well as all my future apps. It is all there. And so if you're serious about NoCode, you definitely need to join our amazing premium Patreon community and become a member and get access to all of these amazing benefits. And you can do that by clicking on the first link in the description below the video.